Alrighty then. I'm gonna go live just to be on time. We're gonna have people joining a little later. Ah, alrighty then. Here we are. Hello. Not yet. Title. Come on. There we go. Go live. Oh, come on, eyes. Wake up. Huh. There we go. Yep. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Yes, yes. I'm waking up still. All right.
Hey, so.
Hello, hello. Hey, Mary. Brilliant, brilliant. I didn't hear the. Yeah, I didn't hear
How
the.
are you?
I'm very well. Usually, it makes like a chime noise when somebody joins. I didn't hear that at all, which is rather interesting. Huh?
Oh,
Yeah, that's very strange. I'm just setting it up, inviting a whole bunch of people here. So let's see. Just something new that I discovered that hey, you can invite specifically to watch the live, which is kind of neat. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Just send out a bunch and see what happens. I don't want to spam people either. So
there's enough of that going around.
right, right. Well, I just sent in the hey, Renee is here and Aaron is here and Stephanie's here and Ridyansh. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. Ridyansh. I like the name to read it, by the way, Ridyansh. I am not sure the pronunciation, but I hope I'm close enough. It's just a cool name. That's pretty exciting. All right. So we'll share, we'll do some just that's the thing. I say this every time when we do the Facebook Lives, that it's kind of fiddly to get going. You can't just get started and go. So there's always, and it doesn't matter for the live, obviously, but when you watch the recordings, there's always this bit of dead time with kind of fiddly stuff and really nonsense in the beginning. You're not getting right into it right away, which I find rather interesting. That you would have thought by now the system would be a lot smoother, but not so. All right. Let's go full screen share. All right. So Mary, since I can chat to you directly, I don't know if you're watching on Facebook as well. Now, if you are, you need to mute the sound on Facebook because otherwise you'll hear me twice. And it'll be a bit confusing.
Okay.
Right. But I just wanted to ask, okay, never mind. I see it on my own screen here. So fine. You see me chatting on the one side. You see me chatting up in the corner too. But I'm hoping that the text is big enough to read of the book. So I'm not sure how it shows for you, but I'm hoping that if you make it full screen, the live full screen, or it's big enough that you can read along with me. I'm not sure. Same thing for you guys that have joined the live. Let me know if you can see the screen where I'm going to read from. You know, where it says emptiness up at the top. If not, I'll make it full screen. I just like to keep this up here so that I can see the comments as they come in, so I can respond to the comments. That's important. You know, this is it's a participation event, and you know that's the key. We very much like to have your comments. So keen to see your comments. I'll put that in comments. It's the discussion that's the joy, and that's really where the magic is. It's in that discussion. I don't know if you've noticed, but you know, for the last couple of sessions, we we didn't get to read much actually, because the discussion kind of it took such powerful detours, or at least extensions, I should say, and we got into such incredible discussions. It was just magical. And that's what we're after, is those discussions. You know, because it doesn't matter. We can take 10 years to read the book if it needs to. It doesn't matter. It's the discussion that's the issue. You know, and every time we touch on such powerful stuff, and it's really awesome. All right, so I'm going to get going. There are more that said they're going to join. Rachel especially was very excited. I loved Rachel's posts. I don't know if you saw her post. Well, maybe that's Rachel right now. Rachel ordered the book, and it's Bina. Hello, Bina. Brilliant. I'm glad you're here, Bina. I was just saying that Rachel ordered the book, and it came today on the Sunday, which is really astonishing, and in time for the reading. So she said she's just busy eating now. As soon as she's done, she's going to be joining us. But we'll get going in the meantime. Just want to say hi to Bina. You good, Bina? You can hear me? It's all good? So make sure I can hear you. You're still muted. You there, Bina? All right. I'll just assume so. Sometimes Bina has a squirrely connection, so we'll just assume so. Okay. So to get going here, we're still on chapter 3, which is the overall chapter is called deep-seated causality. And we've been going through the deep-seated causality, and some of those are things like conceit and narcissism and their early behavior. But one of those causes, the deep-seated causality of what makes bullshitters and the BMNs, is emptiness. So the quote here to start is, "Without heart, without genuineness, the dance of life is devoid of ecstasy and is reduced to chaotic sloppiness and indulgence." That's a powerful quote. Once we become aware of this void in the bullshitter, it becomes much easier to understand him. The bullshit is used initially to try to cover up this vacuum or to fill it, but this cannot ever be. One can't fill nothing with more nothing. They somehow fail to realize their bullshit is nothing but nothing. We also have to know and realize something else when it comes to that nothingness. It causes them to hate genuineness, happiness, goodness, and any positivity and realness of being in others. They hate true niceness and will try to destroy it because, by comparison, it exposes them and makes them look bad, actually proving their emptiness. Goodness thus reveals their badness, for they do engage in many bad behaviors. Their anti-goodness to disguise faults is a deep and root cause of much of their behavior. I'll just pause there for a second. This is really a powerful point here, and it's really hard to comprehend sometimes for good people. And that's kind of where we started, after the introduction, the first chapter that really gets into understanding bullshitters and bullshit manipulator narcissists, BMNs. To understand them is to understand preposterousness. That's the key. That's the absolute key, to realize that much of this behavior that is it just blows our minds. It's so preposterous, so we have a difficult time grasping on it. So we see this behavior and we see them be negative towards good people, for instance. And I think, Mary, you mentioned this, that you have a friend who's involved with a BMN, and the BMN is always pulling them down. It's always nasty to them, horrible to them, and so on, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
And this is one of the reasons why. Because their mindset is set up in the hierarchy. It's a comparative mindset, in other words. So when they see niceness, they see it, and by comparison, because that's how their mind works, they're always comparing because they're always in a hierarchy. Hey, Ryan, brilliant, man, brilliant. Glad to hear. They see the niceness as making them look bad. And looking bad, it's all about the conceit. It's all about the vanity. It's all about the ego. It's all about appearance. So if they now near somebody who's good, just by that association, they look bad by comparison. And this now proves that they're empty and hollow and nothing, because they do know inside they haven't made the effort to work on themselves. They don't want to. It's too much effort. That's why they go for all the bullshit. It's a cheat. It's a shortcut to being...
Yeah, well, they think they're perfect.
Right, but it's a shortcut to cover up the emptiness. That's how they do. They know they're not perfect, but they push out this bullshit. In other words, they're trying to convince themselves to cover the emptiness. So they don't really and truly think that. They're just trying to convince themselves. But I want to make the point here about the comparativeness. For us as earnest, good people, we say, but how can you hate something that's good? How can you want to pull down something that's good? That's just mind-blowing. It's just like... But that's just absolutely incredibly impossible. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Brilliant. Hello, Ryan. Awesome. So when we understand that this is why they pull down positivity, or niceness or goodness, it's all about that relativeness. They want to be relatively better, and they can't do it of their own accord, getting there on their own steam. So they're not trying to be good in an absolute sense. They just want to be relatively better. This is their mindset. It's all about hierarchy, and we'll come into that a little bit later in the book as well, go into it more in detail. But so this is why they will be horrible and nasty, even to people who love them and who are nice to them. It's just the most mind-blowing, mind-numbing, mind-effing nonsense that you can possibly imagine, is that they will deliberately pull down niceness so that they don't look bad by comparison. It's astonishing. Hey, Pierce. Hello. All right, so we're doing the book reading, man. You want to join? You can read some if you like. Can you read from the screen there? Start reading. Yeah. Go ahead. Read that paragraph for us. Yeah, no, and I'm serious. If you really want to read. It's cool. We'd like to hear you reading. No? Okay. All right. I'll read then.
Well, after I eat my breakfast, I'm going to do some golf.
Brilliant. Brilliant, man. Brilliant. Are you going with Ryan? You as well doing today? Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, at 1 o'clock we
okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll read some in the meantime. That's awesome, man. I'm hoping, Pierce, that Ryan brings the camera and that we can participate and watch. That'd be really awesome. A little side project there that we're going to do. So, yeah, one of our peculiar skills is golf instruction or golf coaching. So, we're gonna assist a little bit there. Hey, Juliet and Aurora. All right. So to continue reading there. Knowing this helps our understanding of them tremendously, especially when it comes to their completely self-defeating, illogical, and irrational behaviors, such as pulling down and trying to destroy the goodness of others who are actually being nice and good to them. but so deep is their inner aversion to their own emptiness, and so convinced are they that they must be better than others, that they engage in this absurd self-defeating behaviors by distorting their perceptions when it comes to good and nice people. And all because of a severe misbelief, the misbelief of relative superiority. All right, so we get to another nice quote here. Without earnestness and sincerity, we're pathetic fools blown about by every fad and fancy. And that's important to kind of realize, you know, that and to appreciate about ourselves that, hey, we have earnestness and sincerity and sobriety and a whole bunch of other things. And to appreciate that. It's not being egotistical, it's being real, and it's being honest, and it's being truthful. It doesn't make us perfect, it doesn't make us special. No, it just makes us real, and it makes us good, and that's something to appreciate. Earnestness, sincerity, sobriety, goodness, the intent to goodness. Doesn't matter that we might sometimes apply it inappropriately or whatever. Doesn't matter. Underneath, at root, we're awesome and we're cool. And that is from what of all of you who have joined, this I can say is something absolutely that I know for sure. Ridyansh, I don't know you personally, but from the videos, from what you're posting, I can see enough that this is part of you. Renee, Aaron, Stephanie, this I absolutely know from personal connections with you guys, that this is your core. So I'm not just saying this as something that's for people out there. No, this applies to you guys, to us, all of us. We have that earnestness, that sincerity, that deep inner goodness. And we really need to learn to appreciate it, because if we don't, we also don't balance the world. Right? And it's part of this, what enables bullshitters. It's earnest, good people not truly appreciating themselves enough. And they don't, therefore, they create this idea that we're deficient, that we're broken, that we've got problems and all this stuff. And that allows this hole, this vacuum for the bullshitters to move in. So I kind of go on a little side tangent here, because this is a really powerful point for me. It's a big deal, you know, that where earnest, good people kind of devalue themselves, and quite unnecessarily so. It's like they're misusing their goodness, in other words. So we have to learn to self-appreciate people, because that's being honest. You know, if we're really honest, we have to appreciate our goodness, right?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any comments. So Ryan, do me a favor in Facebook. I just want to make sure that I'm in the right place to see the comments. Sometimes I have to go to a different screen. So I don't know, just put any comment there on Facebook if you are there. Haha, brilliant. Yes, Rachel. Rachel, new book girl. I love it. I love that your book came in time for the reading, Rachel. That's most awesome. And I love that you posted it. It just made me very happy. Yes, there we go. Awesome, awesome. Here we go. You know what? I forget to do that. I should show mine too. So there we go. I'll put it in front of my face. You gotta do the. I don't know how to do the. You know the. I need practice. I need practice. All right, brilliant. So we're starting on, we're still on the chapter of deep-seated causality, and we're on the section of emptiness, to say that this is one of the deep-seated causalities, like narcissism, like conceit, and narcissism. It's all part of the same thing. They're looking to cover up this emptiness. Here we go, Aaron. Let's see. I had to get out of full screen in order to comment. Yes, that will be so. So yes, I just wanted to make sure that the comments are working and I'm in the right place. You know, comments aren't absolutely required, of course. I do enjoy them, and that's why all of you guys, you're welcome to join us on Zoom, where you can comment in real time. And in voice comment, you know, and because it's much easier to comment in voice than in typing, right, Mary?
Yeah.
And you see, yep. I love your comments, Mary. And yes, you always do comment in chat too, you know, in typing, but it's so much more powerful when it's in real time with the voice. So there's a little delay when it comes to the comments on Facebook, just so you guys know. So if you do come and join on Zoom, like I said to Mary, make sure you turn the volume off on Facebook. Otherwise, you'll hear the Zoom and the Facebook volume. All right. So to continue reading here. And again, anybody interrupt me anytime, just say, hey boy, just jump in. I can always pick up wherever I left off. I don't feel interrupted ever, so please jump in. That's very important, because say what comes up in you as it comes up. That's very powerful. It's ridiculously powerful. It's really awesome. All right, so whenever we feel put out, disgruntled, disturbed, or bothered for no particular reason, inner emptiness of some kind is often the cause. We can't be happy as a result of unreality or a mistaken belief, or because of bullshit of some kind. When we feel this way, it's a good time to re-examine what we've come to believe and adopt. We don't always acquire these compromises consciously. Making that effort to come to awareness and discern our not so obvious beliefs is well worth the energy. The emptiness of the bullshitter serves as good motivation and insight. Hey, Mark, I'm glad you joined, man. Hello. And I was just saying, you free to join on Zoom. Anyone, the Zoom link, it should be up in the description there somewhere, or on Facebook, in the group there somewhere. You're really more than welcome to join on Zoom. And welcome back, Bina. Brilliant. So, hello, we can hear you now. Yes, I wanted to check to see if I can hear you. I'm glad you're here. So I want to make in this last paragraph here to connect to an underlying theme. Let's see. I'm going to mute somebody. I'm not sure who is. Okay. Somebody was some unusual sound was there. I'm not sure. Like a buzzing. We like the baby sounds, Ryan. So I don't want to mute the baby, but I heard some buzzing. So I don't know if it's from you or not, but it did put an end to it. So all right. Anyway, I wanted to say this last point is it's shifting away from a focus on the.
What a cutie you got there.
My connection dropped me. So okay, we're back. We're back on. So yes, hi Aurora. The baby just gives me lots of joy. And lots of joy. It's just amazing. There's a deep energy. Actually, all your children do, not just the baby, I should say. They all give me a big joy. So,
Kids are nice.
Yeah. Well, your kids are nice.
Yeah, my kids are.
Yeah.
I don't know about other people.
I know, and that's a sad thing to say. It's really a sad thing to realize that not all kids are nice. But hey, we got to be real. It's just the reality. I can't pretend that all kids are nice when some of them most decidedly aren't. It makes us aware that those life choices, they can start and pass. They can start fairly early, and obviously we have some responsibility in that. I don't know how much exactly. But it really makes me think, and if I think back on my own journey, I certainly went on a path of my own from a very early age, and same for Elevia, So who knows how things work, I just know that when talking to babies, they hear us. So I'm very cautious. I don't talk to babies, because like Elevia, she actually has specific memories at like age 1 of hearing what her mother said, and she knew she couldn't express it and say back, and her mother was making up some story about something, and she knew it wasn't nonsense, but so anyway, so the kids are aware, so I don't know, I just treat them as if they're aware but just can't communicate. They hear us. It's profound. Anyway, I wanted to make the point here on this little last paragraph, just from an overview point of view, and in terms of the book. Yes, the book is about understanding bullshit and bullshitters and BMNs, and that's really huge. But the deeper purpose of the book is to understand ourselves. So it's the focus of the group. Self-awareness, self-improvement, self-discovery. It's about seeing that what is maybe there subtly in ourselves that we see so easily in the excess and the exaggeration of the bullshitters and the BMNs. So they become a gift to us, a gift of learning, a gift of awareness. And if we apply a bit of discernment, we come to understanding. And when we come to understanding, that's really, really huge, because then we can deal with it. We're not put out, we're not bent out of shape, and we're not really like kind of bothered and super upset, because we understand how come they are the way they are, and we can even have some compassion for them a little bit sometimes. Not that we excuse or condone, but that doesn't mean that we can't have that compassion of understanding. Because, hey, to be empty like this, to be conceited like this, to be hollow like this, to believe that you have to have hierarchy and to believe that bullshit is going to bring you happiness and a facade and deceit and emptiness, man, that's a horrible way to live. I'm sorry, I can't help feeling sorry for them. However, I'm not going to indulge them, that they can feel self-pity or condone them or anything like that. No, absolutely not. But still, the point I want to make is that when we look at this, it's not just about understanding them, it's about understanding ourselves. Because what we see in excess in them is potentially in us in small bits, right? So this is the point about emptiness, that sometimes when we're feeling a bit, not so good, it's maybe because we're feeling empty in some reason. And hey, then we can deal with it. And we come to another profound point that it's there in all of us in some way. And this is a major issue for bullshitters and the BMS, insecurity. So, all right, Ryan, I'm gonna mute you again a little bit. It's just coming through in little bursts, or somebody's is. I'm not sure who. So, all right. It just when it stutters like that. Actually, I think it's Rachel. All right. Sorry, you just unmute, you guys, if you want to say something. Just unmute as you go ahead. So. I think sometimes when there's multiple people, the one's microphone picks up the other and it makes like a feedback loop. So, all right. Or I hear myself maybe. And again, jump in anytime, guys. Jump in anytime. Insecurity. The root of the us against you mindsuck is to legitimize an indefensible personal illusion. It's dishonest. This is an unethical endeavor to make what's inappropriate and indulgent legitimate, all because of the unrelenting insistence on indulgence. This is huge, man. That's a big deal for people like that we are talking about, that or get caught up in this. And again, like I think Shisha mentioned, or somebody said last week, Donna, we don't want to get to an us and them. We want to understand that when people are caught up in this, we could also be. And it's just our luck that we're not. And to understand this is to realize how easily that could happen. And the more we understand, the more we are prepared and have the defenses, one could say, or the preparation to not get sucked into this kind of thing. And that's huge. That's huge. So we have to understand that when we're looking at people like this, we are really looking at a variation of ourselves. That's how I see it anyway. And I find that very useful, because that prevents that big point that Donna made last week, to say, hey, she's not comfortable with this us against them idea. And that's not what we are trying to propose. It isn't an us against them. No, it's us as a variation. So we're looking to understand ourselves through the excess of one variation of ourselves. We just like to think of it that way because it's very useful to think of it that way. All right. Bullshitters as a whole might appear to be confident, outgoing, brash, or extroverted, but in actuality, they're deeply insecure. Their insecurity permeates everything they do, everything they are. It's that very emptiness or incompetence or other shortcoming, many of them only in the perception of the bullshitter, which they're attempting to cover up and compensate for with their bullshit. So I just saying there, that's a little poorly written there, I'm sorry to say. But the point is that they believe that they have emptiness or incompetence or shortcomings. And it's this idea of themselves that causes them a problem. Relative to the universe, relative to the world, we all have emptiness of some kind in us. And we all have shortcomings, right?
I got to say, the bullshitter rhino is the biggest hypochondriac I have ever met in my life.
Right, right.
And uses that to make the other people in their life feel bad. Oh, I'm sick today. I can't go to work. I can't do this. It's all about them, and it's all in their head. It's all in their head. There is nothing physically wrong with them. It's just all up in their thoughts. Yes. And it blows my mind.
It
this
does.
is what they use. They use it as a tool to manipulate those in their life.
Yes, and Mary, there's a deep logic to that, and it's somewhere in the book. And we'll just connect on it because we can always just come. Repetition is good. We get different angles and different perspectives, and the more perspectives we have, the more we understand. There's a very profound reason why they have things like hypochondria or an excuse of some kind, because in their minds, like you said, they want to give off this appearance that they're perfect. But now I'm the best, I'm the most fantastic, I'm the king of the pile, and well, the king of the shit pile, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're happy to be king of the shit pile. I call it shit pile logic. They'll pull everybody down to be worse than themselves, to be at the top. But you're the king of the shit pile. You're still living in a shit pile, for heaven's sake. They say, "Oh, I'm happy. I'd rather be king of the shit pile than be bottom of the wonderful pile." That's their nonsense idea. It's all this hierarchy.
Yeah,
but
the funny thing is too, this person really is very highly intelligent.
Yes, yes, that happens.
And I'm like, really? You're this smart. You are this intelligent, and this is how you behave.
It's
I can't help
mind-blowing.
it
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
It's preposterous.
It is. I used to let it pass, but when I'm around them, I can't do it anymore. I call them out on it and say, really, wake up. What are you doing?
Right. And there's a logic, though, to this. So that's the logic I was explaining, and it's really useful to understand. It's somewhere in the book, but I'm not sure where now, but we'll just go there right now. Like the hypochondria, for instance. They have this, and they're pushing this illusion that they're fantastic, that they're superior, that they're awesome, and all this. However, obviously, the reality is that they are not king of the world, or just the one who's most admired, and whatever. So that's the reality, that they aren't actually what they are proposing to be. Therefore, in order to balance things, they need an excuse. And in this person's case, well, it's because of my illnesses and my ailments and all this. If it wasn't for whatever particular ailment, then I would be, special, then I would be successful, then I would be. So if you watch them very carefully, they always have these deep inner excuses that they cling to so desperately, because this allows that balance inside them to reconcile the lack of reality that's coming about.
Yeah.
And that's really important to understand. So now it makes sense. Hey, Donna, brilliant. I see you've joined too. Awesome. So now we get to see when there's a logic to this bullshit that they have. Because it's not just the bullshit of the facade. It's also the bullshit of the excuses as to why they aren't in actuality what they are proposing and presenting themselves to be. Always it's some excuse. Typically it's like, oh man, if it wasn't for my bad luck, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that. They have this full range of excuses, and hypochondria is absolutely one of them.
Yeah, funny. Yeah.
What's that, Ryan?
Yeah, she's actually being pretty good.
Oh, Aurora, yes.
Yes. I think they can hear me, but I can't hear
you. You can't hear us? We can hear you, yes.
Hold on a second.
I had you on mute for a second there, Ryan, because I was getting a feedback loop. But so yeah.
I couldn't hear you, but you could probably hear me. We were having a
Yeah. No, well, you're off mute now, so we can hear you. Yeah.
Oh.
So I just muted you. So just when you want to say something, just unmute again, because I get a bit of a feedback loop. It's not that Aurora. It's just that I hear myself come back a little bit. So.
Well, she can be distracting too. So.
Why? I mean, she's just nice to interact with. So.
Yeah. Right.
But it's more for that feedback loop that comes from the sound when there's too many mics that are open. All right, so just unmute when you want to comment. Yeah, there you go. Cool. All right, so this is an important point to realize, that when you bring up, Mary, that's why I like things that connect. It's a huge point, and see that connects to insecurity. They know that they cannot actually substantiate their bullshit. So they're insecure because they know it's not real. They know it's bullshit. So they need an excuse to try and bolster the bullshit, the insecurity, right? And the excuses, like in this one that you know, it's their hypochondria. That's the reason why. So yeah, it's just amazing. You know, it's something to blame it on, and it's also to blame the indulgences on. Like when they behave poorly and when they're negative and all that, then they probably blame it on, oh, you know, I wasn't feeling well or whatever. You know, I was in pain.
Oh yeah, or somebody else's problem. They caused the issue.
Always, it's never them. Always somebody else. Exactly, and that's when we understand it as covering up their insecurity. It's like, man alive, none of us are perfect. We're all bloody nincompoops compared to the universe, compared to each other. You know, some of us know one thing, some of us know another thing. We're all learning. Who the hell cares? You know, it doesn't matter when we start to see the process of learning and growing as a collaboration. Man, now it changes. It's not a competition learning, it's a collaboration. So doesn't matter what I know, when I hear you learning and how you are learning, that adds to me. Because that process of you learning something, whether I know it already or not, I'm observing learning in action. I'm understanding how you come to learn, and that helps me, because the more we learn how to learn, the more we enhance our ability to learn, and that is deeply, deeply profound. So I want to make this point just to go off it a little bit here. Just in terms of the context of the group, that's the underlying conception and the idea behind the group. You know, awareness, discernment, and understanding. But it's to share our learning, to share our journey. Doesn't matter even if we've learned how to play tiddlywink, something stupid, doesn't matter. We think it's stupid, but learning itself is never stupid. So we have to get away from this idea that, hey, I've learned something that others already know and that's insignificant. It makes no difference what you've learned and whether everybody in the world already knows it. The fact that you are learning it and how you come to learn it, this is the value. And particularly things that, hey, sometimes we have these awareness bubbles. We get caught in a little eddy, a little pool. We may know lots of stuff, but we have this hole in us, and many holes. And so, yes, we might learn lots in one area, but we're missing stuff in other areas. So it doesn't matter if everybody else already knows it. That's what we want to hear about, your learning. Doesn't matter how or what. When we get that and we share that, man, it just gives us more windows on the inner self, on the human condition, on how we come to be who we are, because that's what we all are to each other. We are different windows of perspective on being sentient beings. And that is just huge, huge, huge. So that's the key I want to make. That sharing is just an unbelievably magical thing. It's just so huge. Rachel? I don't know. Just seems like something has come up there, maybe. I don't know. Feels like you had a comment or something. I don't know. Just, I'll unmute you.
No.
Oh, you're all good? Okay.
Just going through my mind. That's all.
All right, cool. Share the things that go through your mind. That's what we want to hear. It's really huge to hear that. It's really awesome. So, all right, we'll read some more then. Okay, those with independence of being are a severe threat to the bullshitter. When they encounter such people, they will do everything they can to try to pull them down and in some way prove they're actually full of it, just like the bullshitter. They hate the fact that together people are actually what they try to bullshit others into thinking they themselves are. But what particularly bothers them is the realness and genuineness of these people, which utterly destroys one of their chief excuses, the excuse of, but everyone does it. No, everyone does not do it. Insecurity of self is a simple fact of life, one honest people come to terms with because they've got nothing to hide. If we're humble, we know we don't know everything. We know always having the solution immediately is unrealistic. We know these obvious truths. And so what? Honest people simply know this as a fact and no big deal, unless we've adopted some measure of internal bullshit making insecurity an issue. This could be the bullshit of trying to be perfect or of trying to do a best which is unrealistic. Good people have to be careful when it comes to inappropriate application of goodness, a subtle problem which can lead to inadvertent problems such as unwarranted insecurity. Together, people have made peace with the fact of their personal insecurity. They've learned to trust their ability to learn, an option always open to those with patience, earnestness, and humility. So I just want to really go on to this point of inappropriate application of goodness and to get back to that point of self-appreciation. We don't self-appreciate so often because of an inappropriate application of goodness. We believe it's good not to be conceited, and yes it is, but we take it to extremes. So we associate conceit and self-importance and all of the bullshit nonsense, we associate that with self-appreciation, and it's a false association. If it's untrue and inaccurate self-appreciation, then it's bullshit. But not all self-appreciation is bullshit. If it's true, it's true. That's it. All right. So there's a powerful comment from Erin here. She says, "You know, this really helps me in my little world since I'm a shut-in and see no one. I do interact at our admin, a mutual group we are in together." So yes, I see your admin there. It's really huge. In a negative way to those who act in it in this bullshit way. You know, I try to promote love, family, and respect in the group. And sometimes my own insecurities come out when interacting with those types. Yes, yes. That's very profound. Thank you, Aaron. That's a huge share there. And that's a big deal. So, you know, to be an admin of a group, I don't know how many of you are, but it's quite the deal. You know, we tend to take this for granted and we belong to these groups and, you know, you see the admin or the moderator. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very difficult because you have to deal sometimes with people who are being profoundly negative for no logical reason whatsoever. There's just no justification, which is the next point here. No justification for that negativity at all, but you the one who has to deal with it. Most in the group don't even see it because you delete the posts or kick the people out of the group. But this means that you have to do something negative, which is like essentially shutting people down or kicking them out. And that takes a lot of us out of us. And also, okay, sometimes you don't want to kick them out, but you've got to deal with them in some way, maybe explain something or whatever. And that takes a lot out of us. And like Aaron says, when we're dealing with that, it touches on our own insecurities. So I don't know, the issue here is just to make peace with that and to say, hey, I don't know, I'm doing my best. And that's all we can do is just do our impeccable best and then trust for the rest. And just, you know, at some point you got to say, you know, that they are putting you in an awkward position and not to take all of that onto yourself. And this is also the stress that you feel, it's inappropriate application of goodness. You're doing what's right and sensible for the group, but you feel bad about it, but you feel bad for kicking somebody out, for instance. That's inappropriate application of goodness because you are only applying your goodness to the person themselves. You're not necessarily looking at it overall, right? You're doing it for the good of the group. That person is a cancer on the group. You got to cut them out. That's it. You got to be positively ruthless. There is such a thing as positive ruthlessness. We see it in good mothers and good nurses. So you know, I shared that I think I shared that post with you about the my hero, the positive nurse. I shared it with Aaron, I do believe, and I don't know, some of you, you know, may have seen it on my timeline and all that. But yeah, say again, Bina.
I have a question.
Yeah, please. Love your questions.
Inappropriate usage of goodness, inappropriate goodness, implication of goodness.
Right.
It seems like I grew up in an environment where we are so like scared of being narcissistic, being a bully, being a proud person. All these very negative things, and parents were like, okay, you don't need to say, you don't need to show off your things. You should be humble. These shoulds, yes, and these things, like they were so scared of it. My get caught up in those things. So it's in our personality now, like it's like engraved. Like we don't need to focus, not focus, but just having peace with our own talents, our own qualities. So sometimes we feel that we associate like being the good person. It is like, okay, we are bound to feel connected with all other people's problems.
Yes. Bina, we lost your sound there, but just if I were to encapsulate what you're saying and also put it in the context of Aaron, that for me, what comes up is that our goodness sometimes causes us to take responsibility on behalf of others. So let's take that, for instance, where in the group, like you're the moderator, and somebody's been a troll and a jackass and they disruptive and and you have to kick them. Now you feel bad for them. But yes, empathy is something that we've been taught is very good, right? And it is good to be empathetic. But that doesn't mean that we need to take responsibility on behalf of others. That's an inappropriate application of goodness. So I'm not quite sure if that's exactly where you were heading, but it felt to me, and at least it brought this up in me, that Bina, that we can't take responsibility for others and the way they feel. If they've done something that they've brought something on themselves, like in the case of a troll that's getting kicked, that's on them, not on me, right? They've brought it on them. I feel bad for them. Say again?
Okay, but yes, it is about like Irene, what she shared. It was about a group, but in a family, but in our friend circle.
Yes, yes.
But like yes, in extended family, and I'm like, we have to deal. Sometimes we are bound to deal with people who are BSMN and they do things, but you just can't get rid of all these things. And you feel associated with them, you can't just cut it off all the cords with them. So sometimes you have to deal, and then the inappropriate application of goodness really haunts you, like really bugs you, because you feel bound. And there are so many kind of a pressure, like family pressure, cultural, and all these things.
Right.
So in that particular situation where you just can't get rid of all these things, you can't just throw someone out. No, you can't do that.
Yes.
Then in that particular situation, what we need to do, what we can do actually.
Oh, yes. And that brings me a really powerful point of a really huge point. It's something I encountered way back when. And it's just a very simple quote. And it's the hardest thing is to let others be. And it always stuck with me. That was really huge. One sec, Ryan. Just that, to let others be is very, very difficult. And it's a profound skill. So sometimes, hey, you the troll, you the knucklehead. Hey, Paul, happy that you joined us. You the knucklehead, you the troll, whatever. Yes, we just got to let them be sometimes and not try to fix them, not try to take responsibility in them, not feel on their behalf, not feel like, hey, just because I kicked them out of the group, or in the family situation, like you said, that hey, you're not giving them that energy that they are looking for. That you're just saying, hey, you know what, you want to be whatever you are, you're going to be it on your own. I'm not going to interact with that, which is letting them be. And the bullshitters and BMNs are profoundly valuable when it comes to learning to leave others be. It's really huge. We're reading the book, the Out BS book, Overcoming and Understanding Today's Bullshit, Paul. So I'm glad you're here. You're welcome to come join us on Zoom. There's a link in the post there somewhere. So that's magical. So we're just reading from the book, and then as stuff comes up, we discuss it. So we're on the section here. The chapter is deep-seated causality, and we were on the little subsection of emptiness and insecurity.
Ryan,
so we're going to move on to justification. Yes, we want to hear from Ryan. Thank you for reminding Bina.
My turn.
Yeah. Well, it's not so much a turn. We just try and squeeze everyone in, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta let everybody have their turn.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that's a big deal. and I've realized that this concept big time recently, is helping people is overrated. Okay, and here's why. You can't really help people, and this is a hard, awful truth that I had to come to. I've always wanted to help people my whole life.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to help people who I perceived were maybe lower than me, or like, somebody who didn't have a job, or somebody who was homeless, or somebody who was sick. But the reason why I was drawn to those people, and I wanted to help them, is because I identified as one of them. Okay. This was a hard one. This was a hard one for me. This is very difficult.
That's huge. I'm listening, Ryan. I'm just going to make coffee while you explain, because this is a big point. So I'm listening.
And I really struggled with it, and I really had a hard time, and it wasn't really easy for me to swallow. But when I realized that all these people that I was trying to help, I was feeling sorry for them. And out of that feeling sorry for them, I was empathetic with them because I was connected to them, because I was one of them, you see. And I've done this my whole life, and every time that I helped someone, per se, it always ended up me in the end. I was always the one that got hurt, and I never really could understand that. But just recently I realized, well, you know what? I was one of them, and I was feeling sorry for myself.
You were looking to help yourself, really.
That's right. So what you said is, we don't really know what's good for other people.
Yes.
And by us thinking that we can help someone else, it's an illusion. It's false. It's not real.
It's a presumption, which is an arrogance.
You cannot help anyone.
Right.
And that's reality. And it can be a harsh reality and here's what was even more profound. I realized that by wanting to help other people, you are super egotistical. You're almost, no, this is what's sad. This is what sucks. I realized I was more egotistical than the people that I perceived as egotistical.
Yes.
That's a hard one to like come to grips with. Yeah, that hurt a little bit.
Oh, I love it, and it's huge. And yes, Ryan, and it does. That's the thing with learning. We have to know that, yes, sometimes dealing with the awful truths, it's not always easy. But sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to make this point, because we've made it in our chats, but I just want to emphasize it in the group context here, that when we face and deal with the awful truth and do so with honesty and earnestness and sincerity and impeccability, and we are real about it, we transform that awful truth into the awesome truth. Yes?
Yep.
That's what it is for you now. These are awesome truths now.
On the other side, the people that I always viewed as enemies that were trying to like hurt me and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, they just do that because of this, this, and that. And they think they're so good and cool. Or they think they're better than me, or whatever you think. It's not true. Actually, it's the opposite. The people are your closest allies. But you need to just suck it the fuck up and get out of your head, quit feeling sorry for yourself, and just fucking quit being a baby and just go and
right. Hey, Aurora's saying, hey, don't be dissing on babies.
I'm just being honest though. Like,
right. I hear you. No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Right. When we see the world as a reflection of ourselves, that's when we really come to something that's powerful. I want to make one powerful point here, Ryan, that when it comes to helping others, don't want to, connect this because it can be very disillusioning in a sense, this reality that, hey, we can't truly help each other because that goes so against us. We can, in a way, but it's a different path. We can't help directly because that's presuming we know what somebody is, what's good for them. However, when we share what's been helpful to us, and when we share our journey, our path, our understanding, our awareness, that sharing creates options and choices. And then somebody who is on a path of learning now has more choices, more options to choose from. And they can pick and choose what is going to help them, what's pertinent and relevant to them in their particular instance. And that is, they can find help via us, but we're not directly helping them. We're just sharing our path, our learning. And it's not about sharing wisdom or teaching. No, it's just sharing your path. And when we learn from others, that's what happens, is through that sharing. We always learn when we see how others learn and how others grow. It is unbelievably huge. So we can help, but we can do so via sharing. That's it. Not to presume we have the answers. Share your process, share your journey, share your insights, share your understanding, share your takeaways. And that's what we're all about. In this group, in the self-awareness group, in our particular, the Way of Impeccability program and everything, it always comes down to that sharing. Because when we share, we're collaborating. And collaboration, as we're so fond of saying, when you collaborate, 1 + 1 + 1 equals more, right? We get way more when we collaborate. And that's the problem with the bullshitters and the BMNs. They're in a hierarchy mindset where it's all competition. And it doesn't really benefit them very much. And the overall certainly doesn't benefit very much. Because again, it's shit pile logic, right? They just want to be king of the shit pile, but you're still living in a shit pile. Collaboration, you live in a magic pile. And there's always more because of the collaboration leading to more. It's really huge.
Yeah.
It's really
I just got one thing I want to say.
Please, Mary, please.
Yeah. You cannot control somebody else's behavior. You can only control your reaction to them.
Exactly.
And that's what the BMN, my life, doesn't get. He wants to control everybody around him.
Yeah. And it's not going to happen, and
no.
that's the thing.
No, and as intelligent as he is, he just doesn't get it.
Right.
He doesn't.
Because sorry, go ahead, man.
It amazes me that somebody that really is smart can't see that.
Right. Now, that you bring up a really huge deal. And the reason they don't see it, and intelligence can be fooled by misbeliefs. So one misbelief can distort our entire intelligence and corrupt it to get to doing all sorts of nonsense. And in this person's case, that belief is the belief of hierarchy. It comes from the primitive brain. Like, okay, you got to be the alpha dog, or, the leader of the pack. That's their idea. And it's a big fear because if you look at, say, for instance, lions, right? And you look at the hierarchy and how it affects there and the pecking order that's involved, that's a very real thing. That makes a very real and substantial actual difference to your life. Being higher in the pecking order has very profound survival value. In other words, that's where the word lion's share comes from. When you're the big chief of the lions there, you're the biggest bully, in other words. You're the biggest BMN. You're the biggest manipulator. And you basically, when there's a kill, you just greedily take as much as you want and to hell with everybody else. It's a very selfish mindset, and it's not a very communal mindset to a much extent. And if you're at the bottom of that pecking order, well, you might go hungry. The guy at the top don't care. So
he became the person that he despised most in his life.
There you go. Isn't that sad? But that's the problem, though. You know, it's because of that fear of being at the bottom. And it's this idea that you need to be higher in the hierarchy. That's the belief. It's the belief in hierarchy and superiority. And that's what we're going to touch on. It's a very big point to understand that these people are dealing from their primitive brain, which literally still exists in us. That brain that's in the lion, in the chimpanzee, in the ape, in all animals. Really, lizards, they all have it. Chickens, it's a chicken mentality. Pecking order, same thing. So this is very powerful for them. It's why they can, even though they're intelligent, they can become subverted because they have this profound belief that everything they're operating from, and it's like the apex point, and everything follows from that. So the intelligence serves the belief. So that's the key. And I think, well, I'm not sure where I mentioned this, but if there's one thing that I'm very keen to share, and if I could wish upon others as something that I've found to be immensely valuable and to adopt, and that's to understand the value of overview perspective. Look at your friend. Their intelligence is completely lost because their intelligence is serving an agenda, and that's the agenda of this misbelief, and in this particular case, the misbelief of hierarchy. Now, there are other misbeliefs that people subscribe to. The misbelief of, chasing success could be. Now, not that success is a negative, but when it overwhelms, you can do foolish things in the name of success, right? Like becoming a criminal, for instance, just for argument's sake, right? When you are so dominated by one idea that you lose perspective. So when we look at this from the overview perspective, and we understand that, hey, our intelligence serves our beliefs. This is huge. If your friend wants to really change, all they need to do is have their intelligence now serve a different belief. And that is our choice. But we need to get to the hour as in our fullness of being and not get caught up in a bubble awareness. So this is really huge because it leads to another very profound point, and that is that I is more than one. We tend to think of the individual as being one thing. It's not so. I implies one. It even is the same when you write it, but it's not actually true. I is more than one. We have Mr. Hierarchy in us. We have Mrs. Stubborn. We have Mrs. Jealous. We have Mrs. Pride. We have Mr. Anal, which Mr. A, he gets a lot of airtime. But it's about managing those and realizing that they are parts of us. We have our inner bureaucrats, which are very powerful. That's the brainstem. They are really actually bureaucrats, and their job is to keep us alive. So they have a whole profound responsibility. I'm not going to go into them too much now, but when we understand that we can become lost in one of these aspects of ourselves, as I call them, like for instance, we get lost in stubbornness, we can get lost in Mr. Ego, and in this case, Mr. Superiority of your friend. They get lost in that. It's not the all of them. We can zoom out and say, hey, that's just a belief. It's a sub-program that I've become immersed in. It's not the real me. And that's the key. Like Ryan and Rachel and Bina, and they involved in the Way of Impeccability program. Now, when we talk there, we are mostly focused on the real you, and we have a real us, and it's not about necessarily discovering it or finding it. It's just uncovering it and connecting to it. It's there in all of us, and I see it in, like everyone here, I see it, and this is, for me, it makes a very profound difference. I see that realness, and I just try and connect to that. The rest is it's totally irrelevant to me. And when we connect to our own realness from that overview perspective, man, that's really, really, really profound. We realize, hey, wait a minute. I am sincere. I am earnest. I am honest. I am good. Okay, sometimes I might fall off the wagon a little bit, but deep in my deeper self, if I could choose who I wish to be, I would be those things all of the time. Yes, I get corrupted, but that's the understanding, is you get corrupted by these sub-programs, by these sub-aspects. And also, we use them inappropriately. Take stubbornness and pride, for instance. Most people will think, to be stubborn and prideful is not... hello, Donna. I saw when you join, it tells me, Donna Herbert joined. So I did say hello earlier, and I did see that you're here. That's no problem. Thank you for reminding me, Donna. That's awesome. Thank you. It does give me comfort to know you're here. So that's great. Anyway, so I'm saying that when we look at our inner aspects, so like say pridefulness and stubbornness, we say, oh man, you know, our earnest goodness is, that's not a good thing. But not necessarily. They can be. In themselves, stubbornness and pride can be either positive or negative. It's how we use them. For instance, me personally, I take stubborn pride in not being egotistical. So, whoa, what the hell? How the hell does that work? But it does. It's really magical. So we can leverage even things like stubbornness and pride and put them to good use, right? Or I can say I can take stubborn pride in being patient. And I do. I really feel like patience has become a superpower for me because I've leveraged things like stubbornness and pridefulness. I really say I take great pride, and I'm very stubborn about being patient. Okay, yeah, I'm not egotistical because I'm also trying not to be egotistical, and I use those. So we can leverage them, and this is very powerful. So I'm putting this in a bigger context to say that I is more than one, and that we can shift to that overview perspective. And when we have overview perspective, we realize it's our beliefs that inform us, and our intelligence is subservient to our beliefs, not the other way around. And that's really huge. So we can shift our beliefs. We can shift our beliefs about stubbornness and about pride, for instance, and say, hey, I can use these positively. And anything can be used like that. So really, I'm now coming into the whole big picture here. It's all about appropriateness, like anger. Sometimes anger is appropriate, sometimes it's not. Mostly it's not, but it is possible. So we can't say, hey, I want to eliminate anger. No, your inner bureaucrats won't allow that, because there are times when what is generally negative is appropriate. So we can't eliminate it. We have to just make peace with it and say, it's all about how I appropriately use what's in my life, right?
Oh yeah. I'm with that. Oh yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. So it's about awareness and to have the discernment. That's what your friend is lacking, right, Mary? He doesn't have awareness of what's going on. He's not discerning to understand that, hey, his intelligence is serving his belief. And therefore he doesn't have understanding, and therefore he's lost. That's why we like awareness, discernment, and understanding. And there's a little magic to them. You know, we take the first letters, it's ADU. Awareness, discernment, understanding. In other words, they add to you. And the you is also for the universe. They add to the universe. So when we apply awareness, discernment, understanding, we add to the universe. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's amazing. And he has systematically eliminated people out of his wife's life.
Yes.
Because he felt threatened by those individuals.
Right.
And he tries with me, but that'll never happen.
Good for you, Mary.
Because the relationship between his wife and myself is a lifelong relationship that will last.
Right. And you have a powerful Mrs. Stubborn that is really awesome, and you leverage that stubbornness in a positive way, right? Like you stubbornly refuse to let him destroy your relationship with his wife. Yes?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's not gonna it's not gonna happen.
You
know, but he tries. Wow. He does try. And I just laugh at him and say, "Oh, that's bullshit."
Oh, I like that term. There's a little joke where I put all the synonyms for bullshit. You know, malarkey and boondoggle and all this. And you said bullshit. Is that how you said
bullshit?
It? Bullshit. I like that. Yes. Because he's got all these diseases, and you know he's got all these itises, so he's got bullshititis, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where it came from in my head.
Mary, I want to connect to Aaron. Aaron said, "Wow, that is huge." Aaron, there's a bit of a delay in your comment to what we were saying, so I'm not sure precisely which point is huge for you, but I am keen to know which one. I will just give that a few seconds here to connect. I'm very keen to hear. When something is huge, it's really huge to hear what's huge. Because when we know what's huge for others, man, that gives us insight into understanding what is, valuable, what's important. So it broadens our depth of understanding of others, which is the understanding of ourselves. Yes? So I'm just keen to hear from Aaron. All right, Aaron, I'll watch the comments and say, I'm keen to know which point is huge for you. That's really huge. And again, feel free to come on Zoom if you want, no problem. Okay, so to carry on, and it's nice, when the stories come up, Mary, you see how we go sideways, and our center column is what we're reading. Oh, right. Being intellectual and being unable to connect. Yes. The understanding that intelligence serves our beliefs. And that's why you can get intelligent people doing really, really foolish things. They get caught in bubbles. So yeah, it's very, very, very huge. And that's why when I started that whole segue there a little bit, or horizontal discussion, it was about saying, if there's one thing I could wish on others, like just as a connectivity that's really profoundly valuable, that's the ability to zoom out and to have overview perspective. We like to say a little quote to remember this: when in doubt, zoom out. And when doubt here means when you're unsure, you're insecure, you're feeling bad, anything that's off. Whenever something isn't quite perfect the way you want it, zoom out. And then you look overview perspective. And then we start to see, like in this case, that, hey, you know what, I'm doing things relative to a particular belief. And it's like, wow, man, that's very transformative. We sometimes have these deep beliefs in us that come all the way from childhood and that we haven't let go of. For instance, for some people, they still connected to the idea and the belief or the motivation, the conditioning of complaining. Because, hey, in a baby, when you complain, you get rewarded, right?
Right.
Look at the baby there. If it wants something, it complains, it cries, it's essentially complain, it gets rewarded. But now, as you grow older, you have to realize, hey, that is no longer an appropriate system. And there's a magic to that from my perspective. It's like the magic of the universe. It forces you to deliberately choose your way of being and how you are going to operate, and your awareness and your character, your everything. You have to now deliberately unlearn and deliberately learn what is you and choose your own self for yourself. That's what makes you real. But some people never unhook from complaining. They still are connected to its value and they try to complain in everything in life. So they've never really become an independent person. They're still in that default conditioning, that default system that we start life with. So just a little aside, but it's really a powerful point. It's really huge. It's really cool. So, all right, cool. Let's move on. Thank you. That's awesome, Aaron, man. Your point is such a big point, and how it connects. I'm almost reluctant to continue a little bit right away. I want to let that settle a little bit. This point about, yes, it's from overview perspective. We get to see things and they make sense. And when stuff starts to make sense, that's when we get that inner peace. That's when the body starts to let go. And it makes sense now. It's always something that's puzzled us. How can intelligent people be so stupid? And that includes us. We often are, we regard ourselves as at least marginally intelligent, but we feel we're sensible. But how can we be so stupid sometimes? Because we have these misbeliefs of some kind or another. So when we look at our deep beliefs, it's really, really huge. And it comes to our next point here, which is justification. So this is the thing. That belief provides the justification. So we'll use it as a segue. And the quote here is, to start this section, is weak foundation, weak character, suspect motivations, suspect agendas. So that's the point. With your friend Mary, he has a weak foundation, right? Which leads to him having weak character and suspect motivations. His motivation is hierarchy and superiority. And this leads to his horrible agendas, like, for instance, getting rid of his wife's friends, right? It all comes from that weak foundation. All right, so let's read on.
Yeah, nobody to be there to call him out on it. Is what it is,
Exactly. So, and also this is a big part of the book. It comes to how, by not being aware, we can inadvertently condone. You don't have to necessarily say, hey, whatever his name is, just say Dick for argument's sake.
Yep.
Hey, Dick. Yeah. You know, you don't have to say specifically, you're being full of bullshit. And hey, you know what? You're not being nice to your wife. You don't have to say it. You can just show it in your awareness. And the thing is, when we don't say it and we don't show it in our awareness, they take it as an inadvertent condoning of their behavior. We'll get to it later on. So yeah, you know, we do need to show that and not kind of cover it up. And also, again, inappropriate application of goodness. So Erin says, this gives me a profound understanding of those that I interact with then. She's talking about the BMNs and the bullshitters and the trolls in her group. And some I can only give them options of awareness and move on. Exactly. You can't fix them. Only they can fix themselves. But what we can do through sharing is provide them with choices. What they do with those choices, that's up to them. We can't force them to choose the choices, and we don't want to either. Let's imagine we actually did have the power to force somebody to choose what we think is right for them. What are we doing? We're just programming them and turning them into a robot.
Yep.
And that's something that I'm sorry, that's not something that I think I could possibly do. Yes, maybe they're going to be a well-behaved robot, but to deprive somebody of the freedom to learn to be a real, free, independent person, that's something that I don't wish to rob anybody of, no matter how much of an idiot they are in the meantime. Because I know at one point I was a profound idiot also. And when I look back from the future, I know I'm going to look at me now and say, oh my God, what an idiot you were. But hey, so how can I make that the thing? I can only provide the choice. And again, to say, hey, that's why it's difficult. We've got to leave others be. We've got to leave them to make the mistakes, because that's, for me, from that, when I was this nincompoop and knucklehead, I learned profoundly from it. And today I'm thankful for that. It gave me a deep understanding into psychology and bullshit and all sorts of nonsense. So, I mean, and I learned from, you know, BMNs in my family and in my life. And man, they were profoundly valuable. So, hey, we've just got to learn to extract the value from it. And that's the key, to say, hey, I can actually get value out of this. Now, Ryan has had some profound stories of seeing things as a gift, where before he would have seen them as a curse or a block.
Yeah, usually what's interesting, and I'll say it, it's pretty much every time I'm in a situation and I feel like I'm losing control, or like there's a part of it that's not going perfect or not going right. I feel like I lose control and I get upset and I want to blame somebody. And then I'm like, I don't want to be involved with that. Now, for the past 10 years at least, I'll say every situation that was like that, it ended up being the opposite. And that was the situation that was going to take me to the higher level where I wanted to go. But I couldn't see it because of my stupid egotistical pride, whatever it was.
Bubble awareness. Just call it bubble awareness.
Right. And I wanted to be in control of the situation. I went through one of those this week where, you know what I mean?
I love it. Yes. We're always learning, man. Yeah.
Where I was investing in something and like, it's a new thing, so it's a little risky and scary. And I like to be in control of my money and all that. But there was a part of it where I had to let go and be like, and just trust. And this was a universe thing. Like, it brought it to me. It's a good thing that's going to help me. And I did it. And there was a little bitty thing that went wrong because I started to doubt it. I started to doubt
right.
Be a naysayer. And as soon as I did that, guess what? That doubt created the bad situation, I believe. And something didn't work. And I was like, I'm like, I knew it was a scam, or I knew it was like this or that. And then it ended up, guess what? It was just when I tried to do the little bitty thing that I was trying to do, they were updating the thing. So there was like a glitch. And, you know, that happens with technology.
Yeah.
It ended up being, I got all weird and like emotional. For nothing, for no reason.
There was a reason. The reason was learning and self-awareness.
Right. Exactly. So it was actually, the whole thing was a gift. And it started with my brother. My brother's like, oh, you're going to lose all your money. This and that. It's a terrible idea. You know, he's one of those naysayers.
Yeah.
But he planted that seed of doubt. And then it started to grow a little bit. And I'll tell you, when the universe brings you something and it's causing you to let go of your control, it's always going to be a good thing.
There you go. Yep.
Even though it's going to be scary and you don't want to do it and you're like, I don't know. You can't. You have to just be impeccable and you have to go with what is happening at the moment.
And trust. Yeah.
You got to trust.
And trust, but your trust has got to be founded on impeccability. In other words, you can only trust once you've done everything that you can do. You've done all your research. You've been diligent. You've been scrupulous. You're not bullshitting yourself. You're not being indulgent. Then that's when you say, I've done everything I can do. I've been impeccable. Now all that's left to do is to trust. And also to understand that from the universe's point of view, the reason it's bringing that in might not be for a reason that you think it is. Our imaginations are but limited. So in this case, like for you, Ryan, you might believe it's the reason for, you know, some profit or some, but actually maybe it's some deep learning that the universe is trying to share. So
don't know. Because I've been through a lot of different situations in my past that I thought I was going to be a part of this, or this is what I'm going to be a part of. This is what I'm going to be a part of. But all of these things were just like they just came into my life to teach me something, and then they were gone that quick. And then
that's the point. That's the point.
It was to transition me to this next phase.
Yes. Yes.
And so
yes.
You never know why you're going through something or why you're involved with something, whether it's a job or a relationship or what. Because it's always going to take you somewhere, transition you somewhere based on your desire, whatever you want and wherever you want to go.
Yes.
It's going to take you there, but you have to let go of control and just allow it to have its process.
Right. And the way to make sense of it all, when we zoom out to overview perspective, when we come to that center point right there of how everything makes sense, it always makes sense that whatever happens, it's there for the point and purpose of raising and enhancing your awareness. It's just all about awareness. That's it. It's all about the learning and the growing. And once we understand that, then life becomes very simple. And it all changes. It starts to make sense. Now we go into anything and we say, hey, whatever it is, I'm going to learn. It doesn't really matter which way it turns out. And then we also come to understand there's no such bullshit as mistakes or failures. There's just alternative learning. That's it. You can learn in one way or another way. What difference does it make from which of these angles that you come to this point there? In the end, it makes no difference. Now, okay, some ways are a little smoother than others. We can preemptively learn. We can choose to learn. We can deliberately learn. And through that, we can take joy in learning. And then it tends to be a lot smoother and easier when you get with the program, when you're in attunement with the greater scheme of things, which is all about learning and raising awareness and developing awareness, then it all starts to make sense. Now we get to see all of these things which before were problems as gifts. I mean, take Mary. Let's take your friend, right? We'll call him your friend.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a couple of different ways to look at Dick. I mean, sometimes they can be really useful and valuable and other times not. And we can have fun with Dick too. Excuse my puns here, but okay. The point is that through having him in your life, yes, there is stress involved, but he's providing a very, very deep and valuable insight into psychology and understanding. And just for that one point of how our intelligence can become subverted because of misbeliefs, that alone is valuable for the interaction, for the connectivity. Right, Mary?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge point of learning. Like Aaron said, it's a massive.
It's why I sent. Yep, it's why I sent the book to his wife.
Brilliant. Right, but what I'm saying is that, you know, we don't necessarily put the dots together. And you ask this as a very sincere and earnest questions. And earnest questions have a superpower over me, by the way, just so you all know. If you ask me an earnest question, it does things to me. It will always bring stuff out of me that I don't necessarily have access to. And your earnest question, you ask, but it makes no sense to you. How can this intelligent person be so stupid? And then we shifted and we looked at it from that overview perspective. And then we suddenly saw, oh, there is a way. There is an understanding when we look at it to see that, hey, intelligence serves the beliefs. And in his case, he's got this profound misbelief. Now he makes sense. Even though he's still being foolish, he makes sense, right? And you resolve that earnest question for yourself. And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal when we come to such deep understandings. It leverages us, and that's when we, you know what? I've now got something profound here. This is a very big deal. It's not just a simple realization in the moment. It's a life-changing awareness and realization. And this is something else that I would love to emphasize, to say, hey, we have to make this shift in ourselves, to not see and associate and come to believe that profoundness and life-changing sublimeness and awesomeness and fantasticness needs to be something super huge and massive. Sometimes it's in just one sentence, one word, one awareness, one click, in the absolutely ridiculously simple. When it's not to minimize it, in other words, say, oh, but it's too simple, it can't be profound. No, it can be. Sometimes the profound, and usually the profound, is actually just us becoming aware of the obvious. And that's
well, you know, it also confirms in my head what I've thought for a long time.
There you go.
You know, it wasn't the people around him who were losing it. It was his behavior that was causing it all, and making everybody else feel bad.
Right.
And we were like, what, you know, and some really, like his wife, she feels, you know, the size of an ant sometimes, because he's put her down so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a big deal.
She hasn't been brave enough to say that, you know, she needs to find a way to stop it.
Right.
Went to therapy, and he switched the situation around in therapy. It was all her fault. It's nothing he ever did. You know, he's Mr. Perfect.
Mary, just if you want to, you're welcome to connect your friend to me, and you know that I can connect with her. I can, you know, and we we can be very helpful for your friend. We've dealt with
I appreciate that. I don't know if she'd do it, but I appreciate it.
But again, you know, we do it online, and it's she can do it on her own time, and it's something that she can do independently of her husband, because, you know, going to therapy like on her own, he's always there, he's always controlling. So she can do this independently without him being involved, and that is a very big step. So, you know,
which is what she now does.
Right. Okay. Brilliant.
She does now do that. I think they went a few times together, and then he refused to go after that. So now she found somebody independently that she went to.
Good.
So, you know,
I just wanted to make the point that we are available, and we do provide that service. It's something that we do. You know, we don't push it with I don't care to advertise, and I should actually, you know, somebody was saying, hey, I need to put out in the group what all we do. Actually, it was Donna. You know, she was reminding me, say, I need to make a post about what we do, because people don't really know what all we do. But that's one thing we do.
Like
we provide counseling or therapy. We like to call it personal consulting, because we don't do it in a traditional way, because some of the traditional ways are but counterproductive. They focus on fixing the problem, and that doesn't always help. You can fix the problem and eliminate all the negative, but you're just left with zero. You need to have a replacement, because otherwise you just go back to that, because we can't be a zero, we can't be nothing. So it's very, but anyway, so
thank you. I appreciate I appreciate that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And that applies to anybody, of course. If you know somebody or yourself or whoever, you know, we're available, and we do all sorts of things beside our big program, the Wave Impeccability program, and our perspective shifting for self-discovery workshop. But, you know, in terms of personal consulting, yes, we do that. So lots of ways we can connect and be helpful, and help you, assist you to find your own choices. And that's the key. We're not sharing anything that requires learning or teaching or anything like that. No belief required. What we try and do is just make you connect and aware to what's obvious to you, to your own sensibility and values. And it's there in everybody, that earnestness, integrity, sincerity, goodness, impeccability. It's there. All we do is just facilitate awareness of what's already in you. So we're not sharing anything that requires you to believe anything or not. I'll share some of my personal beliefs, and so will Elevia, but we'll always qualify it and say, in our experience, and my personal belief is this and that. And you can take that as you want to. Again, everything we share, it's a free sharing. It's just about, like we said before, it's about presenting choices and options. And that's huge,
Well, that's why I believed your book would be very valuable to my friend.
Yes, it will be.
It's going to give her a perspective that she hasn't had.
Yes, it will very much be. It very much be.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said to her when I sent it to her. I said, this is going to give you a different look at how you see it.
Yes. So Mary, also, if she's on Facebook, she's welcome to come and join these sessions. Plus, I do save them to YouTube. And if you want, I can send you an email with all the links to the ones that we've done so far. I think there's been like 4 or 5 of them, and you can pass that on to your friend and she can watch them as well. So she'll see this discussion, because reading the book, it's very powerful, yes. But when we hear these different perspectives, that's massively powerful also. To see different angles on things, it's huge. It's huge. So it might be very helpful too. I don't know. If you want, I can do that. So no problem.
All right, thank you.
Just let me know. Sure, no problem.
Yep.
No problem. All right, so we get to justification. Another major part of their excuse and justification for being a bullshitter is that actually being what they pretend to be is impossible. A myth they cling to with everything they have, because for them, this myth justifies the necessity of their bullshit, or at least validates it in some way. To gather people with independence of being, disprove this myth, their very existence, and existence the bullshitter resents, as it conclusively shows them up and disproves their convenient self-myth. A problem for the bullshitter is that independent people who have their shit together aren't intimidated nor fooled by the bullshitter. The bullshit arguments, obfuscations, and all the other tricks of the bullshitter don't work on these individuals, leaving the bullshitter feeling defeated. Of course, this is their internal perception only. It has nothing to do with the together individual. They typically don't care a fig about such nonsense. They don't subscribe to hierarchies and comparisons. And this is very big in terms of you and your friend's husband. And typically, I would assume your friend has a deep goodness and sensibility to her. That's why she's your friend, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And
she does.
They can't deal with this. So they have to convince that, and this is where the gaslighting of the narcissist comes in. They have to basically steal that person's goodness. They have to steal their sensibility. They have to make them doubt themselves. And that's a very real thing that they make to do. Because if your friend asserts her sensibility, by comparison, it shows them up and they can't handle that. So it's a really, really big point. And they like this idea, the starting sentence here. Let me just go over that again. So another major part of their excuse and justification for being a bullshitter is that being what they pretend to be is impossible. In other words, they say, hey, you know what, like to be successful and to be fantastic, they push this vibe that it's actually impossible to really be that in real life for real. So that's why I have to bullshit, because that's the only way I can kind of be that way. And it's a ridiculous kind of a mind-numbing self-contradiction square circle mindset. But they use that to try and pretend, oh, it's actually impossible. That's why I'm bullshitting, because it's actually really, in real life, it's impossible to be a truly good person. No, nonsense. It's not so at all. Like in your friend's case, his wife is an actual real good person, but he's going to try and prove for all his worth that she's not, that she's got faults, that she's got flaws, that she's full of crap, that she's this and that. All to justify the fact that he cannot be a real good person like his wife. He's not willing to make that effort. Why? Because he has to let go of one idea, that idea of hierarchy. He sees his wife as kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy pile, as weak and all of this nonsense. And it's just a misbelief. It's a ridiculous, idiotic misbelief. And when we understand how misbeliefs can be so profoundly corrupting, it is really quite scary.
Yeah, he's made her value almost nothing over time, because after he got his education and his degree and started working, and she worked for the first few years of their marriage, probably 10 or 15 years of their marriage, and they've been married for a long time. He started a business with a partner that became very successful. So he said, look, you don't have to work anymore. You can stay home. You can take care of the girls. You can, do whatever you want. Now it's like, well, you don't work. You don't own anything. The house is in my name. The cars are in my name. This is, it's all,
It's all about devaluing her. Yep.
Yeah. All the time. Like, it's like a constant, like, little jabs here or there.
And why? It's because of that shit pile logic. He's not interested in actually making himself really good and learning and growing. There's too much effort and he has to give up. And in order to acknowledge that you need to learn and grow, that means in his mindset, he's automatically pulling himself down and putting himself at the bottom of the hierarchy. That's the logic there. That's why he can't do it, you see. But now he sees his wife being better than him in his mindset, and this is his mindset better. His wife doesn't see better or worse, not part of her logic, but it's his. So he has to pull her down to be less than him. Again, he wants to be king of the shit pile. It's shit pile logic. It's idiotic. And this is the key, though. It's to understand that this is idiotic and preposterous and absurd and ridiculous and just egregious. That's very important. We've dealt with a lot of people, and particularly I've had long, intense conversations and interactions over long periods of time with people in these type of situations. And inevitably, there comes a point where they've been going for years and years and they struggle and they struggle. And when I point out one simple thing, it all fits together. I said, you know what? To really understand these people is to understand that they are actually quite a bit crazy, or just sometimes flat out crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I mean crazy in the conventional, typical way we mean crazy. Not mentally ill, but crazy. There's a difference. Mentally ill is a whole other thing, and this has nothing to do with mental illness.
It's a twisted, skewed view
of
life is what it is.
Exactly. And they know it. That is the crazy part. They know what they do. They're aware that they're bullshitting. They are aware of they pulling others down. And that's what makes it crazy, is that they do the stuff knowing what they're doing. They know it ain't right. They know it's all cocked up. They know it's all messed up, but they do it anyway because they're making a choice of the kind of like a shortcut mindset, as opposed to actually saying, hey, I've got to learn, I've got to face the awful truth and acknowledge that I'm a nincompoop and a knucklehead. And they don't want to do that. So they're making a deliberate choice of which way to go. Now, if we take Brian as a fantastic example of somebody in terms of his stories that he shares, of somebody who has chosen deliberately to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to come off of my idea where I was as somebody who kind of knows what's going on and special and wonderful, all this shit, and to say, hey, I'm a nincompoop and a knucklehead, and I'm going to learn. Right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, it's just magical, man. I mean, sorry, just before you go on, you're sharing, and that you've made that deliberate choice to say, hey, you know what, I have to realize that I kind of have to relearn stuff, and that we're all nincompoops. Now, you unhooked from hierarchy, and you just said, I'm about me and my learning. That's it. You don't care about hierarchy anymore. But they don't want to do what you do. For them, it's impossible.
Right. But also, too, I will say this, like, since you guys have been talking about this lady and her husband. So there's two sides to every coin.
Yes.
I will say,
yeah.
It'll be her responsibility to do what she needs to do.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. She can choose to be a victim.
Yes.
To be that. And you know what? If she chooses to stay in the relationship and to be, and to continue doing that, like, that's her fault. And that's her
right. Exactly.
And at the same time, here's at the same time, you got to look at her husband as a gift. If we're really going to
overview perspective,
right? He is necessary for her growth. You see, because he's putting pressure on her. Are you going to get help? Are you going to do you want to go higher? Do you want to pursue more or not? And if she gives up and gives in, well, she's just going to be stuck.
Right. She has to claim.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah. She has to claim her independence of being. And this is a profoundly big deal. And it's something very difficult to do in those situations. We have to really understand it's a lot easier to say it from the outside than it is from the inside.
Yeah, it's it's hard when on a daily basis you're being pushed down as far as you're going to be pushed.
Right.
And
Because
I gotta say, she's slowly learning to push back and get to a better place.
To assert her independence of being.
It's going to take her time. It's going to take her time. I know it will.
Right. So she's slowly asserting her independence of being. I want to make the point that that in those type of situation, that's why we call them bullshit manipulator narcissists. They manipulate energy and they steal your energy. So you kind of down, you low. You don't have the energy to learn and grow. And they're vampires. Exactly. They're black holes. We call them black hole psychologies. And this is, we were talking about this, I was talking about this with Rachel. You can't fix a black hole by giving it energy. It's not possible. Any energy, even love, makes a black hole bigger. So we have to realize that at some point, you have to disassociate and disconnect from the black hole psychology. It's very powerful. But I want to make this point that yes, we understand that it is that she has some responsibility in it, but we also have to appreciate the inordinate difficulty when you in that bubble and that you are being so subjugated and your energy is being squashed down, you're being forced into a bubble. It's really profound. And that's why, to come back in a full circle to my point about, I know you got to go, Ryan, so I'll just say goodbye. Yeah, no problem, man, no problem.
Right now.
Yeah, see you again. Yeah, so waves by as well. So I want to bring this back to, and I went before I could say more. All right. Anyway, so to bring this back to this point of the understanding that I was making, this point that's so transformative for people in that situation. Because, Mary, your friend likely is trying to understand, but why? It makes no sense. You know, I do love him, and I know he's deep down, he's a good person. And they're trying to figure it out all the time. And some part of them is trying to fix the situation and trying to resolve it. And that's the point, that when I shared that with people to say, hey, you know what? When you really want to understand this, understand that at some way, in some point, and even to a large degree, they are just flat out crazy. That was the connectivity, because you can't fix that kind of crazy. And now it made sense for them. And that was a majorly transformative point, to realize that, hey, they are trying to make excuses. They're trying to justify it, trying to rationalize it. You cannot rationalize crazy. By definition, it is irrational and illogical. That's it.
Yeah, that twisted logic.
Exactly. It is just flat out crazy when they grasp that and they say, I never wanted to say that. I never wanted to acknowledge that. I never wanted to recognize that. But when now that it comes from outside, it's like this big, profound shifting moment for them. And this allows them to move on, because they can't let go of somebody if they don't have a good reason for doing so, right? And that craziness is the good reason for doing so, to realize that they're all just dealing with crazy people. And that's it, end of story, and then you can move on. So this is a very big point. It's a huge, huge, huge point. Aaron says, yes, so I was in a relationship like that for 27 years until I thought suicide was my only way out. Yes, and it's not the only way out.
No, you know what? And my friend said that to me one day, and I said, no. I said, you know what? You're better than that. Yes. You don't need to take that route, because it's nothing you've done. It's his behavior that causes the issue.
And that's where we come back to inappropriate application of goodness. And it's a big point. If you look at your friend, and like Aaron as well, that they think somehow it's them, it's their fault, that they're not being loving enough, they're not being kind enough. In other words, and they also don't want to leave the person, because they think, well, leaving is being disloyal to somebody that they've been together with for so long.
And it's fear.
And right.
It's fear too.
Right. But a lot of it is based on an inappropriate application of goodness. I mean, yes, there's fear involved also, but let's just set aside those. Because those inappropriate beliefs that, like, for instance, not leaving somebody that you've been with for 27 years or however long, or not abandoning somebody that you've committed to, and loyalty, and, giving up on somebody, in other words, all of those in situations like that are inappropriate applications of goodness. And when we realize that sometimes we can do things out of goodness that are inappropriate, It's really, really, really powerful. And that's why that conception of people like that as being crazy is so powerful. Because now we can say, what's the appropriate way to deal with a crazy person? It's not to have anything to do with them, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking mental illness. That's a whole different reason. We're talking about crazy people. It's like rabies in nature. When you see some animal that's got rabies, what do? You stay the fuck away. That's it. And
Yeah.
so it's very important to understand this. It's a very big point. So Aaron, I very much would love to know how you did get out. How did the thing resolve itself? I'm keen to hear. So if you'd like to share, Aaron, that would be huge, you know, because it's very helpful. You know, I mean, sometimes the universe resolves things. Typically when we get to learn what we needed to learn and see that suicide isn't necessarily the way out, hey, that's maybe when the situation changes. I have found this, that when we're in profound situations that are really like putting pressure on us, when we get to realize and we come to be aware of, like when we say to ourselves very literally, what have I been forced to learn? Oh my goodness, wow. And then I'm assuming that didn't quite work unless we're talking to the ghost of Aaron. Wow. So I'm keen to hear more, Aaron, as much as you'd like to share about this. Truly, it's a very profound story, and I'm keen to hear, you know. So, and I'm also assuming that, you know, that option, that I'm assuming the fact that it didn't work is something that you are thankful for now. Or at least I hope so. At least I hope so. But yeah, you know, I was trying to say though, when we ask ourselves, what am I being forced to learn? Then, and we really figure out what's being forced to learn, and we come to that awareness of what we were being pushed and forced to learn, then the situation tends to resolve itself, and it's like the whole world changes. It's just the most incredibly magical thing. It's quite astounding how that happens. It's just something. Ah, that's good to hear, Aaron. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Aaron is quite the magical person, by the way. I mean, just from these comments, you might not get it, but Aaron's one of the like funniest and most joyful people that I've known. And it's just awesome. So, you know, you don't quite get to see the fullness of Aaron. And I use this as an example that when we have overview perspective, not to assume that when we see one side of person, that's the only side of them. You know, people have many.
Yeah, well, you know,
sides.
my friend's husband, he can be just the most generous guy sometimes. He does have that duality about him.
Yes.
You know, I don't mean to make him always sound like he's such a asshole. But you know,
it's all about which immersion bubble we get into, right? So we want to get to this point of the totality of ourselves and operate from the overview of the all of us. But sometimes we get stuck in, you know, Mr. Generous, Mr. Prideful, Mr. Stubborn, Mr. Narcissist, Mr. Bully, Mr. Hierarchy, Mr. Superiority. So that's the problem with him. He's jumping from one aspect to the other.
Yeah.
He's not in connection with his overview. Real self.
It's always an agenda behind it. I want to say, you know, his wife likes to say he doesn't know what his real job is because he has a hobby that involves music. So he's gotten involved in that and spends a lot of time with that, and then he has his other business. So she says he's confused. He doesn't know what his real job is.
Look how she makes excuses for him, you know. That's good. That's
but I do have to laugh when she says that because
right. And again, you know, that's part of inappropriate application of goodness. Because we can't comprehend crazy, we can't comprehend the preposterous. We try and justify and rationalize it. In other words, we end up making excuses. And it's a good thing to do, to try and have compassion, to try and find some understanding, to try and find some logical, sensible reason. But sometimes there isn't, and sometimes people are just being flat crazy and they're being preposterous. So it's very powerful to realize that. And this concept of inappropriate application of goodness, it's a very life transformative concept. To understand that we can do something believing it to be good and it's not. Again, in the same way as the BMN in this case does, he believes hierarchy to be a good thing. Yeah?
Yeah.
He believes dominance and superiority. So in his own cockeyed, perverted, ridiculous, absurd way, he is actually trying to be good. Inappropriate application of goodness to the extreme. It's quite a sad business. It's quite a sad.
Yeah, like I say, he does have that side to him where he can be very, very generous and good to people, but then it'll come back at you in another direction.
Yep.
Because all of a sudden it's like he doesn't want to be seen as too good. You know?
Yeah. Because that brings up the implication that, hey, if you can be good and pretend to be good, you can be good for real.
Yeah, right. And but it's like he's almost afraid to be that way.
Yes, exactly, because that brings on the response. It's the implications. Because now, if he's pretending to be good and can actually be good via pretending, that means he can be good for real. But that means he has to make that profound transition to humility and to accepting his knuckleheadedness and to nincompoopery. You know, that shift that Ryan was talking about. Now, it's not obviously Ryan wasn't a BMN before, but he's just acknowledging the realness that, hey, we need to learn and that we're knuckleheads and nincompoops. So Erin says something profound here, Mary. She says, I'm so glad that Mary is putting out her awareness to a friend, and may the universe help her. Yes, absolutely. And then Donna says something also. Donna says, so does Mary's friend need to exclaim her desire for freedom first, and then there could be assistance given to her friend because she may not know what steps to take to achieve her freedom, and perhaps that is when and where you come in. So okay.
Yeah,
so,
I think she is afraid to voice it.
Right, but Donna's making a little bit of a deeper point. If I'm understanding Donna correctly, it's a point about intent. In other words, that she's saying that if your friend wants resolution truly and deeply, she has to proclaim the intent. And she has to exercise a desire first, a desire for freedom. And that's what, to exclaim, that's what Donna's saying, to exclaim, to proclaim, in other words, to set out, to say, hey, I want freedom, and therefore I don't know how, but I want that freedom. I have the intent for freedom and to resolve this. When you set that intent, then the resolution comes. And that's what she's saying in terms of where I come in. Because that's happened in the case of people that we've connected to. In pretty much every case, there's been an intent for resolution, and they voiced it very specifically and very clearly. And then it brings into your life what's needed. Now, obviously, it's dependent on the individual and the person, and if that's appropriate, fine, we can get connected. But it's a very profound point that Donna's making, that you can't just struggle with your problem and you know, kind of try and make the best of it. If you want resolution, you have to set that intent for freedom. And then, even though you don't know how you could possibly get resolution, it's going to come.
Well, I think, you know, I think maybe that's my intent for my friend.
Right.
Which is why because I know she's a very sensitive, gentle soul.
Yes.
So I'm trying to slowly work at it with her to get that awareness and to make her feel stronger about herself.
Yes.
And when she does that, the light bulb will go on in her head, because she is a smart lady.
Right.
And she'll say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. She finds her own excuses now to stay, because she has 2 children, 2 grandchildren. She uses them as an excuse to stay in the relationship. And I'm always saying to her, you know what? They're grown. They have their own lives. They love you, and it doesn't matter whether you stay or not. They're still going to love you. Right. So you know, she just needs to find that awareness for herself.
Yes.
So, you know, I just see it as my mission, because I'm so close to her, to make her feel better about her.
Right. Donna makes a very powerful point here. and you know, and it's a really big point. She says it has to be her intent. Yes, you can intend on behalf of your friend, but that's your intent. Your friend has to develop her own intent for freedom. Now, you can't give it to her because that's programming, but you can ask her, what is your intent? What do you really, really want? Do you really want solution? Do you really want help? Do you really want to get out of this? So just by asking the questions, we present options. We can't tell them that this should be your intent. That's presumptive. But you can ask questions which raise awareness. You can bring it to her awareness. But it's very important that it's her intent, not a wish, not a hope, but an intent. Hello, Linda. Brilliant. I'm glad you joined us.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Hello, Linda.
I totally get what you're saying there. Yeah.
All right. So I want to bring things very much full circle too, and it's something Elevia mentioned also. She said I must. She said to remind me to invite you to come and do the Way of Impeccability program with us. Why? Because it's going to provide you the tools and the options and availabilities and techniques and mechanisms and awarenesses and understandings and insights and discernments which will enable you to share with your friend in a way which provides her with options.
Yeah.
Right. So there's I mean, yes, it's a life change program. That's what it's all about. So it's beneficial to us as individuals, but you have a very deep and very real intent here. And your intent is to be of assistance to your friend. Right now we say assistance rather than help, because help is it's compromised. So the Way of Impeccability, it's to enable you to be able to be of assistance with your friend without taking away from her freedom, and to do so impeccably.
Right. Yeah. No, I would never want to take away that from her. It really is about making her aware of that she has options that she has not thought about.
Right. So that's what I'm
afraid to think about. You know?
So that's what I'm trying to say. The Way of Impeccability has a bunch of different functions and purposes. One, yes, it's for profound personal self-change. So that's going to be involved in it for you potentially too. But it's about also enabling us to share in appropriate ways. In other words, to be impeccable when it comes to our intent. So, and yes, and so this point that Donna's saying, she absolutely agrees. It's a very valid point, as she can attest to firsthand. So yes, so in your friend's circumstance, that's what Donna's saying. You know, she understands this from a firsthand experience. It's not something. Donna's actually talking about the Way of Impeccability. I'm sorry, Donna. I misunderstood there. Donna's talking about the validity of the Way of Impeccability program as a mechanism, not just for profound personal self-change, but as a mechanism that enables you to share appropriately and to share with impeccability. And that's what's required with your friend, because you have to be very careful in this situation. Impeccability is absolutely required. On the one hand, you've got the husband pressuring your friend to do all sorts of things, right, and manipulating her. Now, your sincere desire to help, and you know, if it's a press on her, she might feel it's a similar thing in a pressure, right? So it's a very delicate situation. So it requires capital D diplomacy, which is something that's part of the program. So anyway, I'll send you an email and
all right, please do
connected and all that. Now, this applies to everybody here. If you have this, whether your intent is to be of assistance to anyone else, to people in general, or your intent is to be of profound assistance to yourself, which is of course always an assistance, hey, connect with me and hook up, and we'll find a way for you to participate and be a part of the program. So it's open to everybody, of course. You just got to let me know. And it's the point that we're making here. Right. Sorry, I misunderstood. So Donna relates from first-hand experience, both in terms of the value of the Way of Impeccability program and also about your Mary's friend's experience, both, right? Yeah, I thought that's what you were referring to at first, Donna. Sorry, but yes, because you're coming from both. You know them both firsthand. So it's very powerful, you know, when we see, and again, you know, Donna's sharings. Donna sometimes on Zoom with us. They're always really powerful and potent, as is everybody's. You know, when I say that, I'm not saying it's more or less. Everyone's sharings are really profound. Like Rachel was sharing yesterday. Man, it was just awesome. And then Bina shared on her perspective on Rachel sharing, and that was awesome. And then we hear Ryan sharing. And, whenever we share like that and share on sharing and do our takeaways of what it meant to us, man, it's magic. It's magic. We get more. And look at all your takeaways now. Whenever we relate this, Mary, you're bringing it back to a very practical and real situation. And that's the key. Yes, the way of impeccability is like we were discussing with Rachel, right? We were saying it's very deeply spiritual. But here's the key. From our perspective, Elevia and I, for us, spirituality is deeply and intensely practical. It has to be. If it's not, it's just without that actual practical application, it's all meaningless. So it's that practicality that's important. And that's the thing, is to get really practical with your friend. And, when we can be of assistance in terms of providing options through sharing, man, we're helping the universe. We're helping everybody. We are sharing awareness. We are adding to the goodness of the world. And let me make a little side point here. It's actually the starting quote of the entire book. And I just want to go to find it here. We had a whole point on this. Right. I just find it in my file. Here we go. This quote here, it's actually in the start of the book. When we realize we can add to the world, change the world, contribute positively to the world, simply via being aware, we undergo a profound moment of personal empowerment. Biela quote. All right, so the point here is that by being aware, thus, we always say, but I want to do good, I want to help the world, and we look for things to do. But when we really realize that doing is actually just being good and feeling good. That's the doing that we all can do, and that's a doing that unquestionably adds to the world. Any specific doing, like in terms of the technical helping, in inverted commas helping, that's a presumption. We can't be sure that is actually going to make a difference. It may or may not. But we know one thing for sure. Be good. Just being good and just feeling good. This is a profound doing that actually changes the world and contributes positively to the world. And it's massive. And there's a very powerful reason why. Because we are not being part of passing on the infection and the contagion of negativity. It stops with us. We say, no,
right.
It doesn't matter all the negative crap. I'm not going to pass it on. It stops with me. So my being good now starts to put out the contagion of positivity and feeling good. How you choose to feel good, that's up to you. I'm not prescribing that. I'm not taking away from your freedom in any way. I'm giving you the option. That's it. The choice.
Right. Well, exactly. That's why I would never presume to tell my friend what to do.
Right.
But
exactly.
I can say to her, you have various options on how to go about changing things if you want to.
Right. Just something to think about. Right.
Yeah,
it's just a discussion.
It's her choice. It's her choice whether she decides to stay or leave.
Exactly.
I've got my opinion about what I think she should do, but that's that's me.
Right. Hey, Michael, glad you could join us. Right. And then also, it's just that impeccability, which is, in my opinion, this and that and that, but it's my opinion only. My opinion doesn't mean much when it comes to you. You and you alone, right? So the individual is a really powerful quote too. The individual and the individual alone is the final arbiter of truth.
My dad used to say that all the time.
It's a very powerful quote. That's really awesome. So as us in the individual, in the final come to it, no matter what anybody says, no matter how much we get pressured and you've got the conditioning, you've got to believe this, you've got to believe this. You are the one who chooses whether or not to believe. That's it. In the end, you're the final arbiter of truth. So what is your belief, your truth, in other words? It's your decision, no one else's. And it's very powerful to understand. Very, very powerful to understand. All right, so let's read a little bit more here. We got a little bit more time. I'm keen to, I love that we go sideways, but I'm also keen to just finish on the section here. So
Yes, sorry, I can't.
No, Mary. No, sorry. No. Please take the reverse. It is a gift, and this is why we do this. Your sharing, look in the comments there. Your sharing is profoundly valuable, as always, because it gives us something to connect in a real practical sense, connect what we are discussing to. And it's massive. And it also is connected to deeper issues. Overview perspective. It's come to you and your desire to help and how you can help appropriately. So yes, you're already doing that, but it's to be more consciously, deliberately aware of precisely what's involved, right? So yes, you may have know that you can't to do, but now when you think of it in the context of assistance and sharing and presenting options and freedom, now it settles in a bit more. The obvious, in other words, has become obvious. And the obvious isn't always obvious. It's only obvious once it becomes obvious. It wasn't obvious until it became obvious. Yes?
Yeah.
So that's the point of what we're doing. It's coming to that point of connecting to the obviousness, to be deliberately and consciously aware of what it is that's already going on inside us. And that's so huge. It's connecting to our real selves. And that is really, really profound. And that's what I feel my job is really in the greater scheme of things, that what I do in the whole, in our program and in the consulting and all of that stuff, it is to make the obvious obvious. That's my skill and my expertise. That's just in terms of self-appreciation and claiming it from a real honesty point of view. That's all I do, really. I just make the obvious obvious because I spent my whole life thinking about the stuff and figuring it out. And
it's a gift to people.
Right. But it's not, I don't feel very special about it. It's like, for me, well, I'm just making the obvious obvious. It's just that I've focused on this and specialized in this. That's all. So, I don't feel very special about it. I'm just being real, but I have to acknowledge that. And I also appreciate that, okay, this is my expertise. It's expertise I've worked on all my life, but fine. Just making the point of how we got to make peace with our own skills and competencies and self-appreciation. I appreciate this about myself because I'm just being honest and being real about it. And we go into self-appreciation in a big way. It's a very big deal that when we start to connect self-appreciation, not to ego, not to conceit, and not to humility and modesty, but we start to connect our self-appreciation to honesty and self-honesty, then it becomes a whole different thing. So
You've got to accept the good with the bad.
Right. Let me ask everybody that's in the group, okay? I say, hey, if you being totally honest, we put you on this universal lie detector and you in front of God or Allah or Krishna or the universe or whoever you believe, in some way, okay, you're under pressure to be totally honest. You have no choice. And in that circumstance, if you asked, what are your good qualities? What do you like and what do you enjoy? What do you think is valuable about yourself? Now you've got no choice but to say it honestly. Well, are you self-appreciating and is it a bad thing? Well, yes, you are. And it's not a bad thing. No, you are just being honest. Now, if you did not appreciate those qualities about yourself, would that not make you a phony? In other words, if I didn't appreciate my skill of making the obvious obvious, wouldn't that make me a phony and a bullshitter?
Yeah.
If I pretend it doesn't exist, if I'm inappropriately modest or humble, in other words, if I downplay it and say, oh, well, I kind of have this ability more or less, sort of, but, it's no big deal. No, I'm just being a bullshitter. I'm being phony. But to be real, to be honest, to say, well, I do have the skill. That's it. End of story. It's no big deal. It is what it is. That's it. I'm just being honest. It's completely disconnected from conceit or modesty or ego. And that is very powerful. So when it comes to self-appreciation, if there's one thing I really wish that good, earnest people do when it comes to this, because they really do need to learn to self-appreciate more, is to shift self-appreciation away from conceit and ego and all that other rubbish, and to simply regard it as a matter of honesty, and to realize and to say, and this is my challenge to all of you in the group and anyone who watches this video, to say, hey, if you're not self-appreciating yourself for real, honestly, then you're a phony. So you can't now longer. Now I've got basically screwed things up and say, well, crap. Now I have to self-appreciate. I don't have a choice.
It's about the genuineness of people in your life.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't have a million friends. Right. I have a very small circle of friends, and They're all just genuine people.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's what I want to keep in my life.
Exactly.
The
Now,
bullshitters, I don't want to really have them.
Right. But let me flip it in the context of self-appreciation, Mary. You like your friends because they are genuine, real people. Now, if I put you on that universal lie detector test, and when it comes to self-appreciation, I'm saying, hey, Mary, if you don't regard yourself as genuine and real, then you're a bullshitter and then you're phony, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you are genuine and real also. Yeah, that's what your friends like about you in turn.
That's why it's the circle of friends.
I know you were coming at it in a roundabout way, but that's my point. You need to own your own genuineness and realness from a point of honesty. To say, to own your own value, it's not a matter of conceit, it's an issue of honesty. If you don't own your goodness, if you don't own your value that you see as valuable, like being honest and real and sincere and good and genuine, and that you want to be kind, that you have an intent to goodness, all of these good things, if you don't self-appreciate it, if you don't acknowledge it as just real and be honest, fully honest about it, then you're actually being a phony in a weird way. So we can't be phony as good people. So I'm using this as a profound leverage to say, hey, now that you're connecting self-appreciation with honesty and with not self-appreciating with being phony, you can no longer not self-appreciate, because that would make you phony, right? So this is awesome, because I see this in earnest good people all the time. They don't self-appreciate, and man, it just bothers the hell out of me, because you guys are awesome. We are, as earnest good people, we are awesome, and that's it. That's all that's required. When it comes to goodness, there's no better or worse. A good type of conceit, a good type of conceit is to be conceited about not having an ego, to be conceited about being good, to be conceited.
I was just going to say, don't want the ego to take over.
Right, but you can leverage conceit. You can say, hey, I can be conceited about being genuine. I can be conceited about being real. I can be conceited about not having an ego. I can be conceited about having patience, for instance. All of these are good. I can even be conceited about not being conceited. We can leverage things like that, so it's very profound. But I just wanted to make the point, when it comes to self-appreciation, to shift it away from conceit to honesty. So just unhook from conceit and say, self-appreciation, it's not connected to conceit. It's an issue of honesty. That's it. When you start to think of it and put appreciation in the bubble and the awareness and the context of honesty, conceit just falls away. It becomes irrelevant. Because when you are being honest about what is your value to yourself and what you like about yourself and what you enjoy about yourself and your good qualities, what's conceit got to do with it? You're being honest. When you're honest, conceit is not part of it. Conceit is when you are being false about it, when it's not accurate, that's conceit. When you are overhyping yourself, that's conceit. But when you're just being honest, not a problem. And nobody's going to fault you for it either. If you listen to people who talk about their good qualities in this way of pure self-honesty, they just say, you know what, like the musician says, yes, I've got a good voice. Okay, they're not being conceited, they're just saying it honestly because they know it to be true, or whatever the case may be. In the case that's a specific skill, which they don't really mean much, because you can have a good voice but not be honest or not have integrity, and then what? It means bugger all. It's the real things that all of good people have. You have integrity, you have honesty, you have goodness, you have kindness. Now, you might not always exercise them, but that's the root of who you are. That's who you really want to be. You just don't know quite always how to apply it in the real world. I love that question. I feel a joke coming, Aaron. Aaron posts the most just funniest stuff ever. You want to just have a fun time and you want to change your mood, just go to Aaron's timeline and just read the stuff that she posts. It's just hilarious. Just unbelievable. All right, so let's continue reading a little bit here and get to the end of the section. I don't know where we're at, but got quite a bit to go. All right. You know what? Since it's past 11, maybe we'll just stop here. It doesn't matter how little or how much we do. We've covered so much. And this is a point I want to make also, just ongoing and just if coming back, and anybody watching this video afterwards, that in the same way, it's why I love this background that I put behind me here. because it's about connectivity. So each time we make these sideways discussions and we go into a particular point, like we're going into the point of sharing was a big point today, and the power and value of sharing, and about not helping, for instance, and the problems when it comes to helping. And then also it came to self-appreciation, another huge point. And another huge point was understanding about beliefs and how beliefs can subjugate or distort our intelligence, and particularly misbeliefs. So those are a couple of huge big points, but those big points are all like these individual squares, and they all connect to each other. If you watch really closely on these things, it doesn't always show it, but each square is connected to each other square. Now, it's not the most ideal representation, because really that's a sphere really that goes all around us, and each point of understanding connects to every other point. All these, and the more we see the connectivity, the more we get to this deep understanding in the inside here, and that's when it all starts to fall into place. So in the beginning, we're not always going to see how it connects, but as we keep going and we start to connect these profound points and we start to see the connectivity, then we get to that overview perspective. It's like, now it's all starting to fall into place. But in the beginning, we can feel a little lost in things, but just persist, just keep going and start, keep at it, and then those connectivities will come and we'll start to make that connection. Yeah, Rachel, what do you say? I wake you up a little bit there. Just anything, just curious for a bit of takeaway.
Well, I'm kind of struggling with the logic of standing in front of the gods and saying your good qualities, and if you don't tell the truth, then you're being a liar. That depends on what you perceive the truth as.
Yes.
My truth.
Yes.
I genuinely don't believe that I'm a good person. I genuinely believe that I am, ill-tempered, rude. I genuinely believe those things. I have a lot of negative views of myself, but they are genuine beliefs based on things that have happened to me in my life. And, like Mary's friend, that really touched a nerve with me and gave me flashbacks, because I'm only 3 years away from a relationship like that.
Powerful.
That's still deeply rooted inside of me. And I was told a lot of things throughout that relationship, and I'm still picking the pieces out of my head. But there were still some genuine beliefs that I genuinely believe. So if I stood in front of the gods and I gave them nothing but bad qualities, then am I really a liar? Because that's my truth. That's what I believe.
That's the power. And I love that you share this. It's a very, very profound point. Now, you said it's your belief. Is it a fact or a belief?
It depends.
It's a belief, right? Not necessarily a fact.
Right. My beliefs are based on facts. Those facts are things that I've either done in my lifetime or things that I...
Right. So let's look at this a little bit in detail.
I use the word bit wrong there, but,
Right. Now, we're looking at things that you have done. Things that you have done, right? In other words, things that you have done are behaviors. Yeah? Now, you're basing a belief about yourself based on behaviors. Now, let me ask you this. The fact that you don't like those behaviors now, the fact that you don't like them, doesn't that make you a good person? The fact that you don't like them?
No. If I consider myself a good person for not liking those behaviors, then that makes me self-absorbed. And I'm just trying to be self-righteous.
All right. So what about your intent? Is your intent to not be that way, or is your intent to just keep on being that way?
I'm going to say now that a lot of those behaviors I have no intention to get rid of, because those behaviors will serve me at some point in my life. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring myself under control so that I can have, rather than, there's this thing I read online, it was reaction versus reality.
Right. So you're looking to use those behaviors appropriately, yes?
Yes.
And is that not a good intent? Is that not a sensible intent?
It's sensible, but I don't really see it as a good intention.
Interesting. I see it as a good intention. To be sensible, to me, is a profoundly good intention. I think that's fantastic.
Don't get me wrong. I may sound like I'm a negative person, but you know, I have my ups and downs because
right. Underneath it all, you are looking for some profound sobriety. You are looking to make sense of things. You're looking for some kind of resolution. You are looking to get sorted out in some way. You are looking, again, to be appropriate, to be sensible, to be strategic, to get sorted out in your life, right? Now, to me, that's all coming from your deep, real inner self, that's a goodness. That is a profound positivity, which is the same thing as goodness for me. It all depends on how we define goodness, of course. But to me, you are looking for to improve, to grow, to learn. How is that not good?
It's just something that you have to do. Those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it.
Exactly. And you're making the point to learn, which is a good thing. It's awesome. You don't want to be stupid, which is a good thing. You don't want to fall into that hole of not learning and of being inappropriate and being in these bubbles and holes. So you might not feel that you have goodness, but I guarantee you, everybody listening to this will say, man alive, those are some profoundly deep, powerful, good intents. And part of it is this honesty about your past behaviors. But to me, to make a distinction between behavior and your real intent, yes, those may have been behaviors at the time. But at the time, you were in a bubble awareness. At the time, you thought it was a good idea. In the same way as this BMN that we're listening to, he thinks it's a good thing to be a hierarchy. But he's trying to be good. We can't disassociate from that. It's an inappropriate application of goodness in the same way some of your past behaviors were. They were inappropriate applications of goodness, but that doesn't matter. We just learn. It doesn't mean that your intent was to deliberately actually be, in the bigger overall sense, to be bad. Yes, you might have had an intent to be nasty or mean or hurt somebody, but you felt that that was necessary at the time. So it was a bubble awareness. And maybe it was necessary at the time. Who knows? But it's that awareness that you're looking to grow and learn and to share and to get to more understanding. And how is that not good, Rachel?
It's not what I can consider to be good. It's just something that I have to do, and that's all at this point it is. It's something I have to do.
So do you think that there is something that you have to do which can be negative?
Yeah. I mean, if somebody started calling me names, then I would retaliate with a few of my own, and I'm pretty creative when it comes to name calling. And you know, I'm confident in my own ability to back up my mouth with my fists, and I am not scared to do that. But I'm trying to learn to defend myself more with words and choosing what words at what time.
Why?
And because I'm not under any illusions that violence is a no-no. Violence can be a good thing. Violence has brought around change. Violence has done many wonderful things. Violence can defend.
Yes.
Violence, you know.
Yes, that's a reality. Sure.
It's when you cross that line. It's like if somebody calls me, let's say someone called me a knobshite, you know, I'd be like, well, you know, you're entitled to your opinion, and my opinion on you is not exactly a good one. So why didn't you butt out before you get nutted, mate?
Right. So in other words, you're just saying there are more appropriate ways to deal with problems. It's not violence is a solution, but it's not in general the most efficient and effective and sensible solution. They're better solutions, right?
It can be.
Right. So right. It can be. But in general, violence tends to be a bit counterproductive also, and it leads to consequences that in the longer term tend to come back at you, yes?
That's only if you don't use it in an appropriate way.
Right. But there's more efficient and effective ways of doing things. Yeah?
Yeah, there are.
Ways. Right. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for other options. You're looking to be more efficient, more effective in dealing with your problems. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Now, isn't that a good intent right there to find more efficient and more effective ways of dealing with your problems? Isn't that a good thing?
I agree. It's more efficient. It's better than swinging my fists just because somebody looked at me wrong, you know. But you know, that I've been living with that side of me for so long that it is second nature to me.
Right, but does it mean that it always has to be? And does it mean that you want it to always be part of you, that that's your default reaction?
I don't want it to be default,
There
and
you
I
go.
am to stop it from being default.
Exactly.
But it's not something I'm going to eliminate and deny.
Right, but it's that intent to not have to be default. That, to me, that comes from your deep inner self, to realize that there are other ways of being. There's more to life, and that desire to connect to more, and not to be a victim of conditioning, and not to be the consequence of just assimilated beliefs and ideas. In other words, not to be connected to default, right? That is a desire for realness, for independence of being, and for true freedom, right?
Well,
When do you want to be a slave to conditioning?
But I am never, ever again going to be somebody's victim. And I made that decision a very long time ago.
Right,
Ever.
exactly. And that's what I'm saying. That's a good intent, to not be a victim. Isn't that a good thing? That's freedom. That's the desire for freedom. That's the desire for independence of being. Isn't that awesome?
It's a lot better than being the victim, I can assure you of that.
Exactly. In other words, you're moving from one state of being to another, and it's an improvement. And the desire for improvement is a good thing. In other words, I'm making the case here that you said that you don't see yourself, if you were to be truly self-honest, as being a good person. But I think that, to me, at least from the way I'm making the argument, that from my perspective, that when we examine this a little bit closer, that when we look at the actuality of what you are and what you're doing, that it comes through that you have these deeper underlying intents. And one of those is an intent for improvement of some kind. And the intent for improvement is by default saying that you have a deep goodness and intent to goodness. Okay, you might like this idea of being the bad girl and being this wild person, and you might be stuck in the idea of self, because it has power for you and it has value for you. You don't want to let it go. So it's a belief that you're kind of holding on to because it has value. But in reality, when we really look at it, hey, you can be tough and wild and all of this stuff and still be deeply good at the same time.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't go with your self-image, but that's just the reality of it as far as I'm concerned.
I don't have a self-image.
I see you as a deeply, deeply good person. I'm sorry, that's my view, and I'll guarantee you anything. I'll be happy to take a physical bet for it, an actual real money bet, that anybody watching this is going to have the exact same perception. I don't think anybody here will say that you're a bad person. I'm pretty sure of that.
Give it time.
No, I don't care.
We all have a little bit of bad in us. It's just nurturing the good part.
Right. It's how we use it. That's what you were saying. Sometimes violence might be appropriate to defend somebody's life, for instance. Somebody's attacking them. I need the violence to defend them. Hey, that's good. So everything in its situation in some way has appropriateness. It's learning to use it appropriately. That's the trick. And not to hide it and suppress it. It's learning to deal with it and say, hey, you know what? You have this side in you. It's learning how to handle it, how to deal with it, how to manage it, how to deal with it appropriately, in other words. That's the task. And you are undertaking that task, which to me, that's a good thing. Other people say, fuck it, I don't care. I'm just going to be whatever, and I'm going to indulge myself and do it. No, you are saying, I do care. I do see that this isn't always appropriate. I do see also that I don't want to be a slave to default stuff. I don't want to just be a victim to conditioning, because being a victim is being a slave to a belief, right? That's it. A victim is kind of a belief, and you don't want to be part of that. That's a good thing. That's a profoundly good thing. So anyway, I'm sorry to disabuse your notions of yourself, Rachel, but I'm sorry to say you're just a good person.
Trust me. Out of 27 years of life, there is one consistent thing that I've been told, and that is I'm no better than a rabid animal stuck in a cage, clawing, crawling and snarling, trying to get out, growling at anyone and snapping.
Right, but hey, if you're in a cage, No, to get out of that cage, we'll do whatever it takes. And if that's what it takes sometimes, then that's what it takes. The desire for that rabid animal has a desire for freedom. And that desire for freedom, that's a good thing.
That rabid animal has no other prospects of its life apart from ravaging everyone else around it. And I'm sorry, but when you get told by your teacher that you are the most disgusting, horrible, vacant, nasty little thing in the whole world, that when you grow up and you're going to be in your 30s, you're going to be in jail.
Well, it just goes to show, look at the profound gift in that, right? The gift of you now having to choose your own freedom, your own choice of being, your own reality of self, your own way of being, your own way of living, as opposed to buying into somebody else's idea of what you should be according to them. So this is a profound deal. You can either buy into their rubbish, or you can say, that's just their thing. I'm going to choose who I'm going to be, regardless of what they say. And to me, that's why you are here, because you are desirous and wanting and have the intent to choose your own life, your own way of being, and not to be a victim of somebody else's idea of where things are going. So you can either make that belief true and fall victim to that conditioning and their idea and their manipulation, or you can say, up yours, I'm going to be me, who I want to really be. I'm going to choose my own path.
I'm that person that holds my middle finger to the sky.
There you go.
Says, yeah.
There you go.
I'm a nonconformist, and I've always been a nonconformist, and that's why people don't get on with me. I have no friends, and
that's not true. You got plenty of friends that I know of. Anybody in this group is your friend. I'm your friend. Mary, Donna, Bina, Ryan, we're all your friend.
They don't know me. And if they did, they wouldn't be talking to me.
It's not true. I know you're a good person. I don't care what you say. I know you're a good person. I know you care. I know you have sensibility. I know you have sensitivity. I know you have a desire to improve. I know you have a desire for freedom. That's what I know. There's nothing you're going to say is going to change that in me, because that's just the reality. You exercise that, the fact that you are here sharing your story, that you are here listening, that you are here wanting to learn and grow. That is the proof of your goodness, Rachel.
That's just a desire to change.
That's the point. The desire to change. That is a good intent by itself. You are refusing to accept that teacher, that person's idea, that crap that they put in there. You refuse to accept it. That is deep, deep goodness, because you don't want to be that. They were describing a horrible mess, ridiculous nonsense, which is not really you. It's maybe a conditioned you. It's a starting point. And like that animal in the cage, you say, yes, they're fighting and snarling and rabid and all that. Are they actually living from a point of awareness? No, not necessarily. Once you get to that point of awareness and you look at yourself as, hey, man, you know what? I was that in my bubble awareness. I'm now moving out of it. I'm looking at things from an overview perspective. I can choose to be that or not. And you are not choosing.
The whole reason why I was told that in the first place was because I was told that I had to be and look a certain way. And I called that said teacher a sexist and a fascist.
There you go.
Because very hardcore anti-everything. If you're not white, straight, and cis, then you're a scumbag, basically.
So your reaction was a reaction against prejudice and bias. And how is that not coming from a deep point of inner goodness?
That's coming from a humane point of view, because you can't
exactly, and you have a exactly, and you have a deep, deep humaneness. You were rebelling against the injustice, the unfairness, the ridiculousness, the preposterousness, the just absurdity and the wrongness of that idiot mindset, of that discrimination and that bias and all that rubbish. And that comes from a deep point of goodness. your supposedly bad behavior was because you were resisting and against crap and nonsense and badness and wrongness. You were being good in doing that, in other words. Profoundly so. That's what I'm saying. You're a deeply good person.
Okay. I agree in that, in that area.
Yeah. As the more you come to realize this, I think you've just latched onto this idea that you might be, and yes, there's a little bit of, sometimes having this idea of being a badass, we've come to see it as having positive value, and fine, you can keep that image, but still, you can be underneath it all. You can be a deeply good person and be a badass at the same token. Being a badass, in your logic there, the way you describe it, doesn't mean that you're not underneath it all. The real deepness is a real deep goodness. You are seeing being a badass as being good, and in your context, in your environment, it has value for you. Fine. You're using it appropriately. So it's really awesome.
So am I a bad girl trying to be a good girl, or am I a good girl trying to be a bad girl?
You're both simultaneously. To me, you're just simply somebody who's looking to balance the appropriateness of everything that they are. So it's neither right nor wrong. It's neither good nor bad. It's about appropriateness. It's the same thing when we're having a discussion, right? We're not looking to agree or disagree. We're coming to understanding. I don't care about agree or disagree. Just understand. So whether I'm looking to understand your perception, and hopefully you're looking to understand my perception. It's not about agree or disagree. But when we come to understanding, then we just bypass agree and disagree. Same thing with right or wrong. When we say we get stuck in right or wrong, we forget about appropriateness. Everything is right or wrong depending on the context and the circumstance and the situation. There we go. Now we can see you a bit better. Very good.
Yeah, getting a bit dark.
It's all good. It's all good.
That's just how it is in Britain, unfortunately.
It's all good. It's
always dark.
Yeah. So
again, somebody said, this made me laugh. He said, in England, it's always rain, 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 rain.
Why? Well, I love the rain. But anyway, I want to get back to my point, Rachel, that it's not about right or wrong or good or bad. It's about appropriateness. So you're not a good girl trying to be bad or a bad girl trying to be good. No, you're just trying to be appropriate. And in the greater context, we can say, yes, that being appropriate is a good thing in a bigger sense, not in the terms of good and from a moral point of view or right and wrong in that, but in the overall sensibility from a point of sobriety, there's a goodness to it. So we have to be careful of how we use the words. And sometimes, words like good and bad apply in a very narrow context, and then in others, they're in the big overview context. So I'm applying it in the big overview context. In that context, you're just good. And being a bad girl or a good girl in the narrower context, it's just about appropriateness. And you're being appropriate, and that's good. So life is easy. So bottom line, you're just a good person. End of story. Very simple. I'll make my case. Now,
the whole, believe it, then you're fake thing. I don't believe that's always the case. I mean, I know fake people. I've met so many of them in my lifetime. It's unbelievable.
Right.
I sat down in front of a psychiatrist and told them my entire life story, and she basically told me that I had a shit life.
No, I'm not making the case that you're a fake person. I just mean that in that instance, if you don't truly self-appreciate yourself, honestly, then in that situation, you are going to be a bit of a phony, right? So I'm not saying you're a phony person. I'm making a very profound and particular case here. It's very specific. I'm using it not to say you are a fake person. I'm just using it as a leverage internally for ourselves to shift our thinking. Because good people, they're so conditioned, and we go our whole lives. I know I've struggled with this all my life to self-appreciate, because we're so conditioned that self-appreciation is an act of ego and conceit and self-promotion and overblowing ourselves, all this nonsense. But when we shift the conception to say, wait a second, if I don't self-appreciate, won't that make me not being truthful about myself? And if I'm not truthful about myself, am I not also being that bit of a phony and a bit of a fake that I don't care for in others? In other words, I'm using it as the subtle point of self-leverage to say, if I regard myself as honest, I have to be honest about self-appreciation. That's all. It's really simple. It's kind of like a little mental trick, a perspective shifting trick to leverage ourselves.
Even that little thing, it's like There's this thing you said to me a while ago that's kind of like stayed with me and is something that I've implemented and pretty good at now, which is you can only be fake in that aspect or a liar in that aspect if you already believed that to be true in the first place. If I believe I'm a good person, but I'm just saying I'm a bad person and trying to convince myself of that, myself. Or if I already believe that, and if I already know that to be a fact and to be true, then I'm not lying to myself. In fact, saying I'm a good person is lying to myself.
Right.
I don't know if I have a twisted logic.
No. What you're saying, this is the point why I share. Because, you know, I share and I love perspective shifting. It's why I like this background. Because it's all about different perspectives. Sometimes one perspective clicks with us and another doesn't. So I like to share the same point from multiple perspectives. And then we find the one that clicks with us. So essentially what you're doing is the same thing. You're just coming at it from a different angle. What works for you, it's all good. You know, to understand that, just make the connection between self-appreciation and honesty. That's all I'm saying, is just to shift away from having self-appreciation, only be connected to conceit and self-promotion and ego and all of that. Yes, it can be that being self-appreciative can be bullshit, but we're saying as honest persons, if I'm self-appreciating, well, then I'm not being bullshitty, I'm not being fake. And the reverse, we can be kind of, if we over promote our bad side and only focus on our crappiness and our nonsense and ignore our good stuff, aren't we then being a little bit dishonest as well and not being fully honest about all of us?
No, because what if your bad side is your good side and your good side is your bad side, in the aspect that if I have new friends and somebody's being nasty, I don't think twice about showing my darker side, because to me, if I'm like all smiles and rainbows around all these people but behind their backs I'm just like then that's making me fake. That's making me fake.
Exactly. So you're being real and honest, but I mean it not in real and honest in terms of your behavior toward others. I mean real and honest in your behavior towards yourself. In other words, if you're only willing to share and acknowledge and say, when you self-describe yourself, then you say, well, what's your self-description? And your self-description only includes all your negative points. Is that actually true? Is it actually honest? Well, can you honestly tell me that there's not one single good thing about Rachel?
I can appreciate things about myself, and you know, I can be like, that was nice of me every now and then. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm not somebody who's very expressive. I won't. I'd rather sit down and just listen to people talk, and then suss out in the room who I want to be around and who I don't want to be around. And, you know, but then when people are like, so how do you feel? I'm just like, don't know.
That's behavior. But that's behavior. That's personality, not character.
Right.
Just how we externally behave isn't necessarily what our character is. The fact that you'd rather listen than chat, that doesn't make you good or bad either. It's just your style. And that's just your choice. That's not a matter of goodness or badness or qualities or anything like that. It has nothing to do with it. That's just your personal style. I'm talking about the deeper inner motivations. I mean, you know, that's it. You have a deeper intent. Like, you don't wish us harm right here, right now, do you?
No.
Well, there you go. So you have some goodness in you.
I don't wish anyone harm, and I don't use the word hate.
There you go. Exactly. You see, the more we start to unravel and get past the surface layers of style and personality and just the surface stuff, when we get to the real deep inner stuff, the underlying intent, you don't wish anyone harm, really. You don't hate anyone, really. That's why I'm saying you're a profoundly deep, internally, in the realness of you, a deep, good person. Same as everyone else I know. All have that. Awesome.
I've never used the word badass. I've never used the word badass to describe myself either.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. So I'm just kind of teasing you a little bit, and you know, to illustrate my point that, you know, because you kind of said that in your own perception you don't see yourself as good, but it's just it's making peace with it, and it's getting to that acknowledgement. Sometimes it takes a little bit of doing to get there, because we are so conditioned to thinking that we can't think of ourselves as good or self-appreciate in some way. So there's kind of these hurdles, but it's really the stuff that we have to just work through and get to the deeper
If
underneath.
you see yourself as good, then that's fine. If you see everyone in your group as good, that's fine. But when somebody sees me as good, then that's not fine, because that's not true.
Well, I disagree. And I'm making a good case for it now. If we were to ask anybody listening here, if they think that my case is inaccurate, not whether they want to or not, but just from a pure objective point of view, based on the evidence that you present, not on my beliefs, but on what you present, your intents. For instance, you said, I don't wish anybody harm. That makes you a good person right there. End of story. Case closed. So my opinion, it's your own opinion. You yourself say you are good. You don't have that conception of yourself, but that doesn't make it less of a reality. Your belief of yourself doesn't necessarily have to be accurate. Sometimes we can have inaccurate beliefs about ourselves, but it's revealed in our intents like that. Because that's a very true statement, that you don't wish anybody harm, really. So it's just an awareness thing, that you're deeper. It's just aware which self we connect to, which aspect we can connect to our behaviors and our personalities and our sub-personalities, like our aspects. Yes, we all have a Mr. Violent and a Mrs. Temper and all these nonsense aspects, but that doesn't make them our real, true, bigger self, the one we truly wish to be, are trying to be, and are making an effort to learn to be. That's the self I'm talking about, self with a capital S.
I only have two faces.
Say again, Rachel?
I only have two faces. I'm not somebody who has multiple aspects of myself. I only have two aspects of me. And those aspects of me are what I call Utengard and Innengard, which is self-control, order, chaos, and wild, animalistic, anger and rage and primal.
Right. So in the same way, Rachel, as we were saying in terms of Mary's friend's husband, right, that their belief of what they are doing was influencing and affecting their intelligence and their sensibility and their thinking, right? So now you are sharing with us a very deep and profound self-conception, right? And when we start to really look at ourselves and start to be aware that, hey, how we describe ourselves affects how we live and be and feel and react. So I'm trying to say here that, hey, when it comes to our self-description, it's not a closed bubble. It's not a limited. It's not a complete thing. That's something that can update. It can change. Doesn't mean that we have to, but we can. So I'm just trying to say here that when we look at how we describe ourselves and realize that that's not a fixed thing in time, that it can change and update and grow, it's very profound when it comes to how we then further can use that self-description to affect ourselves and learn and grow and change. Our self-description thus can be very limited, in other words.
Well, as far as Mary's friend goes, I'm not going to comment on that because, like I said, I can only talk about that from an emotional standpoint.
Right.
And that emotional standpoint will come from the things that I suffered 3 years ago. And, you know, I'd rather not do that because I will come across as rude.
It's all good.
No, you know what?
No problem.
All I want to say is I'm sorry if that brings up something bad for you, Rachel, because it brings up bad things for me to see my friend have to go through what she goes through. And she's chosen so far to go along with that, and hopefully is changing that one day at a time for herself, because she is such a sensitive person. We can only accept who we are and what we are genuinely, and then take that and use it in a positive way, I feel, and to pass that on to other people.
And learn and grow. That's the key. Just to learn and grow and raise our awareness.
You know, my husband always used to say, don't get Mary's Irish up. I've learned to control my Irish.
Right,
You know?
right.
There was a time, you know, there was that button. You ticked me off. You didn't want to be around me. I was not very nice when that would happen. And he would say, "Oh nope, bye. Mary's Irish is up."
But we
don't really understand that Irish thing because my grandfather's from Dublin.
Oh God, yeah.
Irish, and I don't really.
Well, it's just an expression.
No,
it's not a literal thing.
No, it's just an expression
idea,
because it was my Irish anger that would take over me. So that's why he would say, "Don't get Mary's Irish up," because my grandmother came from County Cork.
It's not necessarily real. It's just a belief, and it's just a conception. So that's what I'm keep trying to say, is when we zoom out and look at the overview, we don't get stuck in the details. So it's not specifically about literally being Irish that affected it. It's just the idea that was associated in her husband's mind, that her fierceness and her kind of temper and her anger side would come from her Irish side. It's not really real necessarily.
Right, exactly.
All people have anger.
Here in the UK, right, the Irish are seen as more happy-go-lucky than we.
Exactly. It's an inappropriate association.
Yeah.
But I agree, right? But it was the point more that Mary had that side.
About it. That's why I laugh about it all the time. Because I was like, "Where did you get that from?" You know, we would rather sit around and have a couple of drinks at somebody's wake.
Exactly.
The whole drinking thing. Because even I'm like, well, I'm part Irish, so I drink a lot.
No, I know, but that's the point, though. So we're making a deeper point here about associations and beliefs, and how those beliefs and associations can affect us very profoundly. And sometimes they are misassociations and misbeliefs. And when we look at that in the context of self-awareness and self-description, particularly, and how we conceive of ourselves, our self-conception, it is profoundly transformative to realize that our behavior comes from that those deeper self-conceptions, and so that we can say, "Hey, you know what? I'm behaving according to a belief of myself. I change that belief, and therefore I'll behave differently." Is massively transformative. It's part of the whole Way of Impeccability program. We have a very specific session module that's devoted exclusively to self-conception and how to transform it and shift it. It's massively influential on us, massively influential. It's a really big deal. So that's a very cool point. You know, Mary's story brings up the point of how these ideas of self can affect us. And also, Mary, I would assume at some point you liked that idea of Mary being the Irish side of Mary. It had a romantic allure to it, yeah?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. You know, it was, you know, like I say, I laugh at it because it's just, it's not who I am. It was just whatever it was would trigger me to fly off the handle at something.
Right. But what I mean is that
I have learned over time to control and say, that behavior just isn't acceptable.
Right.
You know?
But sometimes people, maybe not for you, but sometimes people can get stuck in that because they like this image, you know, of being kind of, "Oh, I'm the one who'll always speak up. I'm the one who'll get upset at badness." And so it's connected to an image and a perception, and that they find some value in. Yes, it's an inappropriate association, but that's the point, though. Sometimes we can get caught up in these sub-bubbles of self-conception. Yeah. And that's what I meant. For some people, they like the idea of having an Irish side, and I'm just going to use that, or a wild side, or a crazy side, or whatever. It's a romantic notion, and then that affects their behavior. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hail to the ancestors.
Again?
Hail to the ancestors. Everyone should be proud.
There you go. Right. But again, the fact that it is inappropriately applied from her husband is the magic of it. And it happens so that when we look at our own self-conceptions, we have to really look at them carefully to say, are these actually appropriate and valid in the overall context?
Well, yeah, because there's certain things from my heritage where I'm like, that describes me. That describes me.
But I don't mean it specifically just from a heritage point of view. I mean it more from a pure self-conception point of view, not necessarily connected to heritage. Any self-conception we have, we might see ourselves as being profoundly kind and go about trying to be kind in everything. And that could also lead to an inappropriate self-conception, because sometimes we can try and be kind and it's an inappropriate application of goodness. I see this in other people all the time, and they do charitable actions which they think they're helping and they actually make it worse. So it's how that self-conception, how we apply it in a bigger overall context, how it affects our behavior. Be aware of that and to use this idea and belief of self, that self-description, in other words, our self-conception, to use it in a way that truly leverages us in a way that we wish to be. In other words, realize that our behavior can be affected by our self-description and our self-conception.
Fair enough.
It's a huge point. So it's very powerful. It's really cool. And then when we start to look and say, hey, how do I conceive of myself? That's a big. All right. On that point, Rachel, next time we chat, we'll go into that. And from the module we were doing mood management, but we'll do that module with you together. That particular session about self-conception.
Can you say that again? You were breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I was saying when we connect again at some point in terms of the Wave Impeccability program, we'll do that session specifically, the online session of self-conception. We'll do that together.
Yeah, sure.
It's very cool. It's a very cool, very powerful session. So it will connect all of this and make sense of it. So it's a very awesome. Very awesome. All right. On that note, I want to say thank you to everybody. I think Erin's already said goodbye. She said, I learned so much. Thank you. Yes. And we learned so much from you, Erin. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone else is joined. Truly, thank you. It's much appreciated. And I'm hoping over time you guys will connect more and share more and comment more, because I like to hear from people. We share together, man. It really adds. Look at your sharing, Mary, and your sharing, Rachel, and Aaron sharing, and Donna sharing, and every Ryan sharing. It all adds, man. 1 + 1 = more. So that's it. That's what we're doing here. It's a collaboration of more. It's really awesome, man. It's much appreciated. So thanks.
You need to panic when you get 24.
Say again?
You need to get. You should panic if you get 24 people all at once.
It's all good. It's all good. There's never too much for me. There's always more. So
that's when the universe is saying something, because in numerology, the number 24 is a symbol of the universe.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Everything in this world can be equated back to the number 24.
I thought it was 42, but okay, 24. Well, 42 comes from what's his name? It's just it's a satiric science fiction book, and the answer to the question, they put it into this big computer of the universe, life, and everything. What's the answer? And then it came up 42. That was the answer. So
they actually did a movie. They actually did a movie about the number 24 in numerology and what it actually, is supposed to signify and stuff. And the movie's called 24.
I see. Well, in that book was coming at things. It's a satirical joke book, and they kind of put everything on its head and upside down, and 42 is 24 backwards, right? So
there you go then. And it comes back to 24.
Yeah, there's always some magic. Exactly.
I love
it. Very interesting. That's very interesting. All right, cool. So all right, we'll end the meeting here. So thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
I'll send you the email, by the way, also, Mary. I've got your email, so I'll email.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
End meeting for